Well, hey guys, I want to remind anybody that's listening to this on Apple Podcasts that you can find the full video version of this by following a link in the description of the podcast. So tonight, you guys know that I've got Nick Shabazz here. He's a friend of mine. Nick will not be showing his face. He's gesticulating with his fingers. You guys can't see it. Give me a thumbs up. So he's not going to be showing his face. So let's not hound him about it. He's not going to wear his Batman mask, but you are going to get to see a lot of cool knives. So, and I want to apologize in advance if you hear any background noise. It is a little early. It's still 82 degrees in my garage. I'm not closing that door. You will have some noise. So let's go ahead and bring in Mr. Shabazz.
Hey everybody, Nick here.
I wanted to say, I'm trying one of these. I know it's Beer and Blades podcast, but currently I'm drinking a Coca-Cola with coffee and zero sugar. I just wanted to try one out. I'm regretting my decision. It's not the greatest. I wish I had not done this.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit better living through chemistry. I actually brought a ginger beer, figuring it. I might as well go with the theme, so to speak.
Well, I have beer. I'm just not drinking it now because I need the caffeine. I haven't eaten anything today. I've been playing Mr. Mom and cleaning the house and getting everything ready. And I realized it was 15 minutes before the show was supposed to start, and I haven't eaten yet. I was like, I should probably put something in my stomach that's gonna, like, the caffeine will cut back on that urge to eat.
So if you pass out mid-show, at least we'll know what's up, right?
I don't pass out.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's what I was talking about. So you guys are gonna hear cars going back and forth because it is 5 p.m. So people are just getting home from work. So
sorry about the timing.
I have a question on here, but I know that it's probably one you're gonna have a hard answer it to the best of your ability without putting yourself out there any further than you want to. Tell us about yourself. This is hard.
So I'm a gigantic freaking nerd. I know that's going to shock a number of people out there in the audience today. But basically, I am a person, I'm a scientist. I'm a person who really my daily life is by and large computerized, actually. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing on a regular basis is interacting directly with hardware, digital kinds of stuff, audio recording, that kind of world. And so, it's part of the reason I like knives and watches and things like that so much is because they are very analog. Right. And, it's, for instance, if my knife won't close, I don't have to think, oh, did I patch the software? Right. Like, I'm not sitting in that world. It's just like, is there something in it? Oh, there we go. That's the problem. And so yeah,
the reason that you play with knives is the exact opposite of me. Like, I've always been like, knives were a big part of my life for work and things like that. So for you, it's a way to, it's kind of a relief.
In a sense, it is, certainly. Although I got to say, I've always been a tool geek, generally speaking. And I think that all of there's a reason, Gear Geeks Live is a thing, right? It's always been there for me in a bunch of different ways. I growing up as a kid, like the Sharper image, remember that? Hey, kids, ask your parents.
I love the Sharper image. And I'm old enough that I don't have to remember being a kid. Like, I was a full-grown adult because I'm almost 50. So
you can actually afford that stuff.
Yeah, I remember all that stuff. So I was like, wow, I really want that. The only problem was getting it shipped to Japan.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, but for me, there's always been the appeal of, like, if I'm doing something in my daily life, I want to have the right tool to do it well. Right. And, I try to keep that limited. I'm not the guy who goes out and buys, a $4,000 belt sander. I'm sure that's a thing. But, the things that matter to me, I want to do them right. I want to have the right tools, and I want to research those tools. I want to dive deep into it. And so in a lot of ways, I became a knife geek because I realized, oh, my God, for a long time, I'd carried where the heck are you? This little guy right here. This is a Leatherman's. This is the Squirt P4, I think.
But I have a Leatherman Micro somewhere around the house here. The one with the scissors on it. Yeah, that was great. I used to carry those because I used them for wire cutters.
Yeah, no, and they're great. But this is probably, like, in terms of hours in my pocket, this is the knife that has spent the most time in my pocket because all throughout of course, naturally, I would have never carried it in high school because that was illegal. But nonetheless, all throughout, this is just something that's been on my keys for a long, long time. And then at a certain point, I realized, like, actually, wait, a bigger blade would be helpful for a lot of things I deal with on blade. And so I upgraded when I realized, like, okay, it's not just crappy knives out there. There's really nice stuff out there. It was just like, oh, holy crap, here's a rabbit hole. And then I went down, and then here I am here today. So, and same thing with watches. Once I realized, oh, wow, there were better watches out there than, not that Casios are bad, but then like, your smartwatches and kind of thing, just like whoop down the rabbit hole, flashlights, all that kind of stuff.
Hey, Alice Hill asked Mike and Nick, and it's Emler, there's no B in my name, Alice. Have you ever tried the Guinness Nitro cold brew coffee? And I actually have. It's amazing. I tried it in Portland. When I was there I had the Dutch Brothers coffee. I had their nitro brew, and then I had a Guinness cold brewed coffee. It was delicious. Have you tried it?
I haven't. I'm more of a tea person, honestly. Any kind of iced tea,
that's
I'd
it.
probably
You gotta go. I can't have you on the show anymore.
I understand that. It's not a real beer. I'm drinking tea. Come on, man. I don't actually own knives, so I don't know what I'm doing here, right? I'm a vegetarian while we're at it.
I was going to ask you, I wanted to ask you if you were still a vegetarian, if you're still sticking with the vegetarian thing.
It's been, I'm damn near the point where I've been vegetarian longer than I haven't. Like, it's still a thing for me. I'm not like one of those, like my wife isn't. I went to a steakhouse like last week with her. And it's always funny, right? You walk into a steakhouse and like someone's got a salad and someone's got a steak. They are not handing her the steak, right? It's just it's a fact of life. So no, I mean,
well, I told you a while ago before you actually even came out here, I was going to take you to the place up in Claremont where I honestly had one of the best burgers in my life, and it was a vegan place. I went there and I had a friend that was vegan. And he goes, bro, I'm going to take you to this place. And I'm like, I've had vegan food and it's crappy. And he goes, no, it is. And so we went to this place, and if he had not told me ahead of time, it was a vegan place. And I knew going into it, he could have bought that burger for me, brought it to me. And I've been like, man, that's a really good burger. I was like, how'd they get the beef so tender? The cheese tasted like cheese. The beef tasted like beef, or the fake beef tasted like beef. The fake bacon. It was delicious. And I was like, this is really good. He says, see, not all vegan food is crappy. And
exactly.
I was like, wow. Yeah, that was an eye opener.
And I want to be clear though. I am vegetarian. I'm not vegan. You can take cheese from my cold dead hands. My friend.
As a matter of fact, I was going to check this out. I had these and I was going to eat a couple of them before the show started. I'm going to tell you guys right now, these are naughty. These are not. These are, man. I mean, it's almost all cheese. There's a little bit of like brown rice flour in it to hold it into a chip. It's like 95% cheese. And I ate a couple of these and I was like, oh, those are really good.
I'm going to spend the next hour forgetting that you ever brought those up, just because I know that once I go there, I won't stop. So
they've got them at Costco.
Mike, shut up, Mike. I don't need this.
They're so good. So I mean, besides, like, you know how you got into knives. So what is your favorite knife design? I was sorry. Well, no, I had knife designer, but let's go ahead with favorite knife designer. Who is your favorite knife designer at the moment?
God, that's really hard to say, right?
I'm going to give you the full screen because I forgot to go grab something, and you can go ahead.
Yeah, no problem.
Do that.
Favorite knife designer is actually, it's very complicated because, the maker, designer, all of those things all kind of play a role. I mean, in terms of just like raw excellence as a knife designer, I gotta appreciate Sal Glessa, right? From Spyderco, because although I don't necessarily, all the designs aren't necessarily the most beautiful things ever. It really feels like he has a much better hit to miss ratio than a large number of people out there. And Eric, of course, his son, is also quite good. So, it's not hard for me to go Sal Glessa. Brian Nadeau is really amazing. The stuff he's been doing lately.
I like some of Brian's. That
Yeah.
I got an Archbishop dagger, or an Arch Nemesis dagger for a customer. I was there to pick it up directly from him so that I could do a video and then send it out to the customer. And the guy had sent me the cash. I had wired the cash to Brian, and I was just going to pick it up because I told Brian, I was like, I know that you hate table auctions. He goes, oh, I fucking hate them. And I was like, okay, so you have a knife that's supposed to go up for a lottery on the table. Would you sell that to my customer directly? I will wire you the cash and I will pick it up from you. He goes, oh, hell yeah. It's just one less thing I can deal with.
Amen.
And I brought that knife home, and it was the hardest thing in my life to send that knife off to the customer.
Oh, yeah. There have definitely been screw you loaners where it's like, so can I make you an offer? No. Are you sure? How's the post office around your parts? Do you trust it?
Yeah. What is this?
Yeah.
Nick Cue Ball says Nick has a great appreciation for the Delica and Spyderco in general.
I do. Yeah, this year, I got to be honest with you, I'm not impressed. This has been a really rough year for Spyderco. But
so anytime you hear that, that means somebody dropped a super chat. Sorry, Nick.
No problem.
You, he says, phew, no slish buoy. We're good, boys. Stop.
There we go.
The only reason they sold those is because people liked your videos.
hey, these are good knives.
Okay, so I will quantify my statement. It's not that I don't like it. It's not a bad knife. I just think that for what they're charging for, well, just Spyderco in general, for what they're charging for what you get, I just don't see it. I won't buy Spydercos until they figure out their pricing and quality. Like the quality's got to match up a little bit better to what they're providing. Same with Benchmade.
I feel like it's super variable with Spyderco, right? Because some of like the Taichung stuff, the US made stuff, by and large, the quality is really there, right? Do you agree, Mike?
Yes and no. I'm not a big fan of the way they sharpen the ones that are made in Colorado.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
They come. Okay, I curse it. I don't usually curse in my videos, but I do curse in the podcast. They're ones that come out of Golden, Colorado. Their edges are fucked.
Yes.
99% of the time. Like I've never had one come that I did not have to fix.
Yeah, the sharpening is not amazing, but the knife, generally speaking, the fit, finish, function are pretty solid.
They're better. I still see some issues. The big problem is that they're knives that I like. That I only really like a couple of their knives. The Endura series is my favorites, and a lot of times those aren't made in Taichung or Golden, Colorado. And
yeah, those are Japan, and the Japan factory is. Oof.
I don't know why. They used to be great, but now, like, if you get an Endura, like it's going to be 99. It's a 99% chance that you're going to have a really tight action. And when you loosen it up to where it's a free action, you've got so much blade play. It's just insane. And
I've heard rumors actually that Spyderco is that like the factory that they use there got taken over by like a son or a grandson or something like that, and things started to slip. And there's a lot of loyalty there. But I would very much enjoy seeing the Delica, the Endura, et cetera, that line kind of pulled out of the Japan factory and brought somewhere else that's doing a better job of it. They can make great ones, but it's just not guaranteed.
Well, that's a thing in Japan now, especially like with a lot of the things that are coming out. Like, because my in-laws, my wife is Japanese, and so I spent a lot of time there. Sure. And there's not a lot of the old craftsmen. There weren't a lot of the younger kids that wanted to kind of follow in those footsteps. So like there hasn't been a big passing down, and that makes sense that there would have been like a grandson that took it over strictly from a business perspective and didn't pay attention to the craftsmanship side of the house. Like there's the actual Higo no Kamis, the traditional Japanese folder with the folded brass handle. There's only one guy that still makes those, that can still make them under the Higo no Kami name, because that was a guild. That was a guild of people, and he's the last one, and no one wanted to learn how to do it. No one wanted to take over the craft, and he's old. He's not far from where my in-laws live, but he's like 80, and he's still cranking them out. But he's the last guy. He didn't have an apprentice. Like no one wanted to be an apprentice. So I can see that now that you said that kind of makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, but the designs are still amazing, right? I mean, you mentioned the Endura. I love the Delica. I mean, it's
Well,
I,
the Endura and the Delica are like in the same family. I consider the
exactly,
Endura,
yeah.
the Delica, the Police,
The
the
Andella is a
Matriarch
thing
2.
now.
Those are all the same family. I love the handles. They're
Yeah.
so ergonomic and comfortable.
Do you want a front choil on it though, Mike? Would that bring you
I,
joy?
I wouldn't necessarily want a front choil. I just want them to start putting a sharpening choil on
Yes.
them.
Can thank you.
It's so hard on stones.
Oh, yeah.
My
I
buddy
just
T
end up
just
putting them
showed
on
up.
a lot of things.
We have an actual studio audience. So
Hey.
it's a harder. That's all I have. Oh shit. So yeah, it's I have a love-hate thing with Spyderco, and
Yeah.
anybody that watches the channel knows that I say that. I want to love Spyderco again. I want to love Benchmade
Yeah.
again, but until they, that's why you never see me at a show go up to the Spyderco table. Like I can't film at the Spyderco table because I know I'm going to say, "Hey, Eric, how do you like fucking up your dad's business?" Like
Oof.
I know that's going to come out of my mouth because that's what I see happening. He's more concerned with sprint runs and the novelty of multiple colors and multiple steels instead of the quality. And that's what I say it. They've become the Yu-Gi-Oh trading cards of the knife world.
I I agree with you. I don't know that I would put this on Eric strictly, but at the same time, I agree with what you say. They have gone all in, especially this year. Like their actual catalog, they have just not released anything that's particularly interesting or new in all four or whatever reveals we've gotten. Each time it's like, oh, no Spyderco reveal. And then it's like, wah, wah,
Or if they
because
do,
it's
like,
all
was it
sprints.
last year that they released them slowly throughout the?
Yeah, I don't mind that because there were some
I don't mind
interesting
that
new
either.
models in there.
Yeah, well, that's like waiting. That kind of builds it up. But like, I just like the models that I do like, some of the older models that they used to make,
Yeah,
they're not making them to the quality levels that they were. And the prices, like, for
that's another thing. Yeah.
for a FRN handle with a VG10 blade and actually no frills, it's just too much for me to pay.
It
Especially,
is.
like I said, the last couple, I either had too much blade or just I couldn't even roll it out. I've never been able to finger flick one of any of the new Enduras. My old
Yeah.
stainless steel one, yeah, I could. But not
Yeah.
anymore. See, I told you this is going to be a fun podcast because I have only asked you 2 questions and we're only at 20 minutes.
Well, you just hit on hot button issues, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I
Yeah.
that's always been my thing. And like I say it all the time, and I guarantee people are like, yeah, we know, Mike, you used to love Benchmade. But when I first joined the military, if you wanted like the top tier quality knife, you got a Pacific Cutlery. And then they changed to Benchmade. So that's what you got then.
Yeah, exactly.
And they still have models that I like. I love my 940. Yeah, there you go. I love my 940.
Exactly.
Would I have bought it? No. Do I love it? It was a gift. Absolutely. It's been a grail knife for me. I just could not justify the price.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in a lot of ways, actually, the 940 was one of the, and I think I've told this story before, but this was one of the first high-end pieces I ever kind of really got into. Way, way, way back when these guys were selling for like $110 or something like that.
What are they now? 180? Something like that?
Yeah, they're ridiculous. They did like $50 worth of price jump when they went to map pricing on them. But anyways, I got one of these guys, and then I realized that the place that I was working in the area I was in had a 3-inch law, and so it didn't make much sense. At the time I was a little bit more concerned about that, but nonetheless, I had restrictive laws, and so I ended up not keeping it. And then I got an emissary, which was also a nice knife, but it was assisted, and it was not a great assist either. But so the 940 always has a place in my heart. It's sort of one of my first high-end, really, wow, this is really nice pieces. And, so it's a great knife. I think it hasn't aged as well. The grinds on them are just not impressive.
No, that one could have done with a hollow grind or a broader blade. So hey, my buddy
Yeah.
over at Fiberlight Firestarter, the owner, Justin, wants to know, do you have a Nirvana?
Spyderco Nirvana. Actually, funny story. I did. I do ish. I did. I had a reground Spyderco Nirvana. It was done by Josh at Razor Edge Knives, and just recently, a really good friend of mine said, "Hey Nick, could I take that off you? And so he's loving the knife. I told him I better have right of first refusal. If he ever sells it, it's coming back to me. But he's one of those people that's a good enough friend.
With a couple knives. I've done that with a couple knives.
Exactly. So like I feel good knowing that he's got it, but it's a knife I very much like. Yeah. And it's not the original Nirvana. Like what they produced was not great. Like the handle was great, the blade was kind of garbage, but reground, then it's a gem. Absolutely wonderful thing.
I never got to see one of the Nirvanas. I had a guy that kept telling me he was going to send me one for sharpening to put on the channel, and then I guess he had some expenses that came up, and he's like, I had to sell it. Now I have seen the tough, and I don't like the tough.
No,
it's an interesting blade shape, and it feels interesting in hand, but it's just not enough that I could actually enjoy it. You know what I mean?
No,
so it doesn't make sense to have it.
Yeah, the Nirvana was great. The Paisan was a big disappointment. Did you ever get one of those?
I saw one of those and I was so excited, and it came in and I was like, I don't even want to shoot a video about this.
Yeah, I want to like it. There's so much to like about it, but that was just like two things away from greatness, right?
Yeah,
Brian
it was
put a real
the one that was the Peter Rizzenti design, and that's what I was saying. I love some of the Peter Rizzenti designs, and I saw that knife came, and I was so underwhelmed that I was like, man.
And especially at what was it, $650?
I think so. And the guy that sent it to me said he paid more for that on the secondary market.
Yeah, and they could have made it a $650 knife.
That's one of those knives that people bought and immediately tried to throw up on a secondary market because there was a limited quantity of them.
Yeah. I don't think, and it just didn't, it landed with kind of a wet plop, a lot like the 10. But that was a disappointment, unfortunately.
So now you've kind of mentioned it with that knife, without the Nirvana, just taking that one off the table. What knife did you get rid of that you wish you still had?
Oh God, Mike,
there's so many, just so many.
I know, right? Yeah. Okay. Actually, I was just thinking about this one today, and you're gonna laugh. The WE Knives Eschaton.
I never had one, but I could see that. I mean, it's crazy. Like you can't use it for anything, but I borrow Elliot's like once every 6 months just to handle it for a while.
It's dumb. It is modern art sculpture, right? I'll pull out the Arrakis, which is kind of the slightly more well done version of it. But the Eschaton is just, it feels like such a unique thing. It happened and then it didn't happen again. That to me, I feel like as a collector, that's something I should have held on to. Another one
I have one
really
that's
comes.
similar.
Oh God!
I have something real similar to that. This was a gift. Wow. This was a gift from one of my YouTube subscribers, Jojo Jeep. He sent me this. This is that one that they did, and it was a display. It was just in a display case. It was for the 25th anniversary of Blade magazine, and this was in a case with the miniaturized picture of the 25th anniversary cover of Blade magazine that had Spyderco and stuff on it, and then all the Spyderco knives were in a case. So there's only a handful of these around. These were sent out to dealers. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, but that's not the point of it, right?
It's not. It was a very thoughtful gift. I really appreciate the fact that he sent it to me.
Yeah. Another one that I kind of miss is the Tad Knives, the Triple Art Design Hawk Dauntless. You ever had one of those?
I haven't had one, but I've had one in for sharpening, and the Dauntless, it was awesome. It was really thick. It was kind of thick behind the edge. It wasn't a super good slicer, but it was really super attractive, so comfortable. And it was one of those things that I would never use it, but I would love to have one. Yeah.
And the Hawk Lock on it was just so nice. And they just nailed the detent on it. I was super, super impressed with that. That was a good knife. And like you said, it was too thick behind the edge, but they did a really nice, that was nice work. I kind of wish I'd held on to that.
Zach said, happy Friday. So yeah, I had a couple, I had one in for sharpening. I had another one in for sharpening that a guy had sent off and somebody reground. I was like, why would you do that? And they didn't do a great job of it, but it definitely did. When I sharpened it up, it definitely was a better cutter.
Yeah.
But still, I was like, man, you kind of just blew it with that one.
Regrinds have to be done really well to be not a horror, a sad thing.
About the only person that I think right now I would send anything off to be reground by would be BGM Knives, John over at BGM. I've seen a few of his. I've had a couple of the button lock Mordaxes come in.
Oh, okay, nice.
His regrind, the hollow grinds on that, like you look at it, you're like, that had to have come from the factory. Like you have to second guess yourself. It's like, is the Mordax wasn't hollow ground? And then you're like, no, that's a BGM regrind. I told everybody there's actually 2 knives that I've gotten rid of, and I just can't justify getting back because I have so much other stuff. And one of them was the Cold Steel Double Agent 2, which was the drop or the clip point neck knife with the 2, like the pinky ring hole and the finger ring hole at the front.
Okay.
Neck knife. And I got rid of it because it had a Securex sheath, and every time you pulled it out of the sheath, it got dull. But the other one was one of the original Cold Steel AK-47s they had. And mine wasn't even black blade. It was a stonewash blade. So none of the black was on it. And it was a great knife. And I wound up selling it to a kid that worked on the base because he needed a knife. And I just can't justify having another one. But those were great knives. I loved that knife.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that the Arrakis?
This guy? This is the Chris Highlight.
No. That Wii knife.
Yeah, this is the Arrakis right here.
Yeah.
This is sort of the slightly more EDC friendly version of the Eschaton, I think.
Now, I haven't ever got to actually carry one. I've seen them a couple times, but I haven't actually got to carry one. But I said that the Eschaton looks like something that a Bond villain would use.
Yeah, I can see that. And this just looks like a ship from Mass Effect or something. But yeah, it's a Geth ship. I mean, I played the trilogy this summer. It was just like, holy shit, that's an Arrakis.
That's a fun game series. I was playing Justin, it's here from Fiberlight Fiberstar. I was playing, I took like 30 minutes yesterday, and I played Kingdoms of Alamar for like 30 minutes last night.
Oh, neat.
Before I went to bed. I was so busy trying to get videos up and stuff because, like I said, this is my job now. So 5 days a week, videos are going up. But I took a break, and I was like, screw it. I don't care if I've edited. I'm going to take a break. And I played that game for a while. It's so much fun.
Oh, yeah. God, 5 days a week video schedule is insane.
Plus 3 live feeds, one of them being a 2-hour podcast.
Mike, oh my God.
Yeah. I don't have, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I turned all that energy that I was using into doing other stuff into the YouTube channel.
I hear you, but wow. I mean, guys, support this guy. Holy crap. Is that well,
yeah, I mean, and I tell people are like, oh, but I mean, come on, you have so much free time. I was like, no, if you do it the way if you do it, YouTube is an actual fucking job. Like,
yeah,
it's an actual job. I'm spending a lot of time doing editing and then the music. And then I don't script anything really. So like, cause I don't ever come off right when I script stuff. So there's stuff that I put up. There's a whole, guys, if you're a paying member, you're going to get a whole bunch of B-roll. There's like a 20-minute video that's nothing but B-roll, where it's just me like, why the fuck can't I get it right?
Yeah. Oh boy.
So I have a question for you. I have a good question for you. Because I figured that you would be one I could ask this. A design you would like to see a company or maker revisit?
Oh, wow. Let's see here. I would like to see, actually, so funny you should mention the Mordax not so long ago. I feel like that's a knife that has a lot of potential, but the grind on it was just not impressive, right? And I feel like they could.
No, you're right. It's really thick. I love my Mordax. I have one of the OGs. Hang on a second. I got to ring the thermos.
Cheers.
Thank you, Tammy. I didn't forget. At least you changed your name finally to Jared. Yeah, I have the OG Mordax. Actually, it's right here. And you're right, it is really thick behind the edge.
Yeah.
Now, if you get one of the ones that John from BGM Knives reground, they're
sure,
amazing. They are. I actually have thought about sending mine off, the OG one off to get reground, but the fact is, there's only 200 of those.
Exactly. And but I can imagine a world in which, because ProTech has done a lot of improvement in terms of edge thickness in the time since that knife was dropped. And I think if they did that again now, that would be really impressive. And I think that is a great knife. There's a lot of joy in it.
Mine is one of the original in-house Ferrum Forge mid-techs.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, mine's one of the OGs. Like it's
yeah.
And I mean, and I've said it before, and you and I did a live on my Instagram one time, and I said, yeah, even if it's thick, you can overcome that by laying the edge back a little bit. But at that time, I was still working for the government and things like that, and I was doing a lot of really hard duty tasks with a knife.
Yeah, of course.
And now that I don't do those things anymore. Like I'm not camping. I'm not like living out in the woods and shit anymore. I'm not having to walk a fence line and do some of the things that I would have to be doing. I find that I really like the thinner grinds, and then I come back to these, and as much as I love them, I'm like, yeah, I love it, but I can't really just like go out and cut cardboard down with it like I want to. Like with this, Luke Albert is here.
Yeah, hey Luke, good to see you.
What's up, Luke?
Not
I haven't
wearing
talked
a
to Luke
G-Shock,
in a long time. I showed you this earlier. I'm really digging this one. This is that what is it? The Gracioso by Kaiser.
Yeah, it's a manganese steel, right?
I actually pronounced it manganese, and he was like, "You nailed it. That's exactly how you pronounce it." He commented, and I was like, "Cool, I got it."
I went manganese with it.
Yeah, I got this in for review from Jared over at Neves Knives, and I did the first impression. He's like, "Good, I hope you like your new knife," and I was like, "Wait, what?" I called him. I was like, he gave it to me because he got two of them. He has, this is the copper and G10. He has the brass and micarta, and he said they're equally good. So
I like the copper one a lot more, actually. It looks really attractive. I definitely get one of those on the channel.
And I was keeping it nice and clean. And when he told it was mine, I really started like hard carrying it. And I can patina copper in a day. That's why I put black ceramic on anything I like that's D2, because I can have pits that will almost go through the blade on D2 steel. I don't know what it is about my sweat. I'm really hard on D2 and 3V and stuff like that.
You're an acidic guy. What can I say?
Where's Luke's comment? LOL, that top knife. Oh yeah, so Luke Albert says that top knife. We have to go back and look at that. I've sharpened one of those actually.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, Tino can tell you too. I sharpened his. He has a Bally that's a Chris like that, and he was like, well, "Why would you sharpen that?" It's like, it's a challenge.
Why would you own this? It's a ridiculous knife, but it's a collector piece now that cold steel is. Maybe not dead, but a little zombified looking.
I actually got to talk to Lynn Thompson via message, and he's really happy with the decision they made. I was kind of hoping that because they had more production capability, they'd start revisiting some of the other knives. But basically, he started his new Never Unarmed or something like that. He has his own.
Yeah.
And I was like, so everybody's like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing this. And I was like, no, they're not. I was like, it's like you took the Lynn Thompson special products catalog and you just folded back till you saw the first like hatchet or tomahawk and just tore it in half. Like he's making that stuff.
Yeah, he's doing the weird stuff.
The weird stuff, like the blowguns.
Shine on, Crazy Diamond. I got to appreciate that, but
right? The dude is so much fun to talk to. He's absolutely insane.
I think I've told this story before, but the first time I met Lynn Thompson was at Blade Show, right? And this was, he had no idea who I was or anything like that. He probably, I wasn't, I'm still not anybody. But anyways, he and I are chatting, and I think Frankie and Bird from Birdshot IV are there. And like suddenly he talks about, oh yeah, and the tie light, and then he reaches into his waistband and pulls out at Emerson Waves Open a full-size tie light, just kind of appearing out of nowhere. And then he's got
Big
an Espada
6-inch.
XL down the other pant leg.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you are everything that it says on the tin, Lynn. I appreciate that. Like, he is exactly who he is in the videos. And I got to appreciate that.
I told someone one time, I was like, everybody's like, oh, Lynn Thompson is big fat. I was like, have you ever watched the videos where he's actually training and handling with a knife? I was like, I wouldn't want to just underestimate that old guy.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Nico and I saw him at Blade Show West fencing, like actually fencing with a guy. And then his knee hurt and hip hurt. And he got his cane and limped away. And I was like, he just fucked that dude up.
Yeah. I mean,
and then walked away on a cane. I was like,
training.
how bad would you feel? Like you just got your ass beat by an old dude and then he limped away on his cane.
Oh, exactly. He could kick my ass at 95. I have absolutely no doubt of that. Right.
Two-way Dave asked if you're going to Blade Show West.
I believe I am. How about you, Mike? Are you?
I'm actually working the artisan table because I'm one of their designers.
Very nice. Oh, of course you would. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so, I'm hoping to be there. It should be a lot of fun.
And I'm taking Nico with me because I'll wind up going to jail. Luke Albert dropping a super chat. I'm going to bet that thermos is going to be so bent up by the time I get something else to ring.
It becomes a tradition, right? That weird kind of stuff happens. That's how I have a laminated sign that is the original printout I made, on my black and white laser printer.
Right? Like, I love seeing that.
Tradition is a thing.
You have the Z Hunter, and I actually now have, I don't want to show it too much because I haven't done the actual video yet. I have an M-Tech, which is basically the Emerson budget line.
Yeah. Oh, the Emerson budget line.
I've talked to Ernie. Ernie heard me say that. I was like, how do you know you got a real Emerson? Because I said it in a video, and he's like, he came up to me at a show and he goes, so you got an Emerson. It feels like somebody put it together in the dark with their toes. And I'm like, oh, you saw that video. And he goes, he's like, no, he's like, some of them are rough. And I was like, yeah, it's understandable because Ernie's another dude that I don't care how much martial arts I take and how tough I think I am. That dude would beat the shit out of me.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, he's, I love him as a designer. I think he does a lot of really interesting work and he does a lot of thinking.
B-Padge, Mike and the Baz.
Appreciate it.
There?
But yeah, I like him a lot as a designer, but I don't particularly care for his sort of approach to production.
I don't either. I've never had too many problems with the customs. They're not too bad. They're still not knives that I would buy. Holy crap. We're going to hit a new record for these. Thanks, Aiden. Aiden says, Mike, Emerson are M-Tech's budget line. I like this. So the problem is like some of the knives. Sorry, guys, my wife and kid are getting ready to go to my kids' after school math program. Some of the knives, the design, like when you look at the blade, I said this once, like some of the Emerson knives are like a butterface. The blade is a gorgeous looking blade, like the is it the CQC15 with that recurve Tonto?
Yeah.
But then you get to look at it, and it's only ground on one side. It's not a V grind. It's not a complete V grind. It's an attractive looking blade, and then it's put in one of the worst handles ever.
Yeah. No,
so, the Waypoint or the which one is that? Is that the Waypoint?
No, this is actually the Tactile Knife Company Rockwall.
Oh, that's a nice looking knife too.
This was one of the nice surprises of this year, I'll say. Like as boring as this year is. By the way, it's been boring as hell in the knife world this year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
I had the stuff that I've had come in that really impressed me this year. A lot of times it's some of the more expensive stuff.
Yeah.
That comes in, but this year what came in and really impressed me was there was two Civivis.
Which ones?
The Civivi Riffle and the Civivi Brazen, both in 14C. And I love I forgot how much I love 14C.
It's a solid budget steel, yeah.
Solid budget steel, can compete with some of the super steels for like edge retention, things like that. And if you want a steel that you can take to a high mirror polish and still has like a crisp, scary, toothy, aggressive edge, 14C is a steel for you. So those two. Then there was a what was it? The Concept Knives Cryo came in, but the one that really, and it's up on my shelf so that it's not in my pocket because I had to put it aside because I'm getting ready to shoot the final full review. The TRM Shadow, like I think regardless of what else has come in this year, I think that TRM Shadow is my knife of 2021 so far. Hang on a second.
It's a really nice piece.
On this thing. Kurt, thank you very much, sir. So yeah, that's a really good knife. And I think I texted you when we were talking about it. I was like, it looks like a shaman and a 940 got drunk one night and had an illicit affair. And that's the illegitimate love child of that.
It is
pairing.
I haven't carried the shaman since I got this. We'll put it that way. I think a lot of things, if I want big and beefy, I'll probably grab the 8020, which by the way, you've had one of these, right? We talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah. I love that knife.
Yeah. But
and I didn't think I would. I didn't think I would because I didn't like the 8015. It's not that I didn't like it. It's just I don't like that lock as much as I like that shark lock. Sure. I was sold. The second I got one in hand, I was like, oh my. Yeah. This is a good knife. But that TRM Atom, that thing, like I literally carried it. I said this, I set an alarm every day at like 5 p.m. so that I take whatever's in my pocket for review out so I can carry the things I want because I love to carry Norseman.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, somebody asked, I was going to ask this question. Someone asked earlier, and just you can answer this real quick. Graham Razel or Norseman? Which, I know you like them both, but which one do you think you would take over the other?
Norseman. And the reason for that is that Graham knives, I love John Graham's kind of design ideas. I love the Razel blade shape, but he has never had them done really, really well, right? I feel like his stuff, it's usually been CRKT or he's had some done as mid-techs by somebody else who grinds them thick. They're just not that impressive for the price.
I had a couple of the mid-techs come in for sharpening. You're right. They are really thick.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great design, but they're just not done generally very well. The Norseman is a design that is very unique, and they're just unquestionably well made, 100%.
I had a Graham fixed blade custom that I sold to my buddy Tino here, and it had mammoth tooth scales and a bottle opener on the end with a nice leather sheath with a clip. I wanted to keep it. It's hollow ground. It's like a freaking straight razor.
His customs are really
His customs are great. So real quick, hey everybody, Nick, I have to say you are basically responsible for me getting into knives. I love your content. Actually, you also got me to watch Mike's channel. So thank you.
Great. Nick. I'm sorry for the cost to your wallet, but at least you found Mike's channel, right?
Yeah. Snuzz. So I don't know if you've seen the PDM. PDM is Poor Decision Mike. He shows up. He shows up occasionally and has me do stupid things. Like I bought myself a birthday present with my points, and he also thinks that I send it to you to get a review would be a good idea. PDM makes bad decisions. What do you think, Nick? You thinking that you want to see this come in for a review? Oh
my God, what is it even?
That's a Gil Hibman double shadow. These came out while I was in high school. And I've always wanted one, and I had enough points that I could have gotten. I could have gotten the stainless steel one, which isn't the. This is the Hellfire one. It's all stainless.
Hellfire. Oh boy,
this is Hellfire. This one is Hellfire Damascus, which is just a black Damascus. But I had enough points that this is 174. I only paid $24 for this. That's how much stuff I buy.
Who makes those?
United Cutlery. But it was such, I almost cried when I got this. It took me back to high school because I had bought so much of the United Cutlery stuff when I was in high school. It was fun. It was goofy. It was nothing functional. It was just always fun. And I got this, and immediately, like the packaging and everything, the box, like the shitty cardboard box with the laser printer cover, it was great. And it was amazing. And I was so happy. And I'm like over the moon with, like I said, these came out in 91. So the year I graduated high school, and I wanted one so bad, but they were like $100 a time. I was like, that was out of my budget for a high school kid.
Yeah, of course.
So, but yeah, that's Poor Decision Mike. And he shows up and he gets me in trouble. He's a big part of my psychological makeup.
Yeah, I understand that. Poor Decision Nick is a thing as well. Often expensive decision, Nick. He got me this recently, actually. This the Herman Sting Damasteel Damacor.
That's not a poor decision, because that is beautiful. That is gorgeous.
But then the money.
Well, I mean, if you're like me, because like everybody's like, oh well, you complain about money, but you bought a Norseman. I was like, I saved for 4 years to buy that Norseman.
Yeah, like
pennies and stuff here and there.
And once this becomes a thing, it's much easier, because this is now a thing that I have around to talk about and etc. That's what I tell myself. What's your thoughts on Damacor, by the way?
I like both Damasteel and Damacor. I sometimes I don't like the crazy designs. I like the old original Damasteel better, but it's still attractive. And I think you wind up. I don't think you really wind up with anything better using Damacor. I like the RWL 34, which basically the Damasteel winds up being pretty much.
Yeah.
I love it. It's one of my favorite steels. That's why I like my Norseman so much.
Yeah.
So I just don't see the upsell on it.
Okay.
But I mean, for some people that want something that is that attractive, but has maybe a different performance level than the Damasteel, the Damacor is probably the way to go for them as well. You know what I mean?
But you're right that RWL 34, CPM 154. What's the other one? Is it ATS 34?
ATS 34. Yeah, they're all three really great. Of the three, though, I like RWL 34 much better than any of them. I think it just takes a different edge.
Okay, I like all three. The stropping on them is so nice, right?
Yeah. There's a handful of steels that are like that, and there's a couple steels that recently came out that, like, most notably for me, ARRPM 9. You can strop that back up. I haven't sharpened my Sea Snake for a long time until the other day. Nico and I used it for something, and I mean, there was it was completely effed up, and I had to resharpen it. But I mean, I literally have had my Sea Snake go a year almost without having to sharpen it. I just touch it.
It's got great geometry for it, so you don't have to as often.
Also,
right?
that I don't know what it is about the ARPM 9. It's enough of a different composition than 9CR, and I think it's just that small addition of cobalt, even though it's really close. Yeah. That little bit of cobalt makes it so much more resilient. And I don't even use actual strop. I just take a piece of newspaper and wrap it around my strop, and I strop it on newspaper. I find that brings it right back up. Super interesting, super quick. So
okay,
I had a question for you, because everybody already knows my overrated and underrated. What would you say for you? You would have to guess the overrated and underrated companies out there right now.
Overrated and underrated. Okay, that's tricky. Up until recently, I might have actually said Cold Steel as an underrated company, because a lot of their stuff is, historically at least, has been very nice. And even I underrated it. But like some of their just basic line stuff, the Broken Skull, the Ultimate Hunter, what is it? The American Lawman. Those are just really good, solid knives. The Code, what is it? Code 4, Code 5? It was a Code. But either way, those have been very, very good knives. And so I would have probably put them as underrated. Other underrated companies right now. Monterey Bay Knives, I think, they're kind of at a place where they're relatively new, so they're not super rated either direction. But the stuff that they're putting out is, given, relatively consistent, because a lot of it's Laconico.
I was going to say, I wouldn't consider them underrated. I'd consider them under published, unknown.
Yeah, that's fair. You could go either way with it, but yeah, I would say MBK is another one of those underrated companies. Overrated, that's a little tougher. Unfortunately, I love Spyderco, but this year they've been kind of overrated. The
I
Who
love
else?
hearing someone else say it. It just makes me
Like I
happy.
said, they're an amazing company, but this year they are just not bringing it.
I
They went
love the
all in on
story.
sprinting.
I love the story of how they started and how they brought everything back and all of, and I mean, they didn't even start making knives. They made what was actually the spider grip, which was this little thing with all the clamps on it before they ever started getting any knife stuff.
Yeah.
And then they made the sharpener. The sharp maker was the next thing they made. And that was before they even made knives. And I like Sal, and he's a great dude. And I've talked to him a few times. I just hate to see a company that came so far then backstep. You know what I mean?
I hope that they've just stumbled, right? I'm kind of hoping that they went all in on this, and the next year or two is, I think, going to tell the story, because it could just be that they made a big bet on the sprints going on forever. They stopped, and now they're having to turn the ship. I'm hoping that that's where the situation is. But if they keep going the Yu-Gi-Oh route, as you're saying, I think they're very quickly going to end up in overrated territory.
I was afraid TRM. I was afraid that's what was going to happen with TRM, because when the first time I saw TRM, the Atom, they had the knives, and they didn't have very many knives at the show. Yeah. But what they had was a whole bunch of these replacement scales. I was like, oh, great. That's another. But they really didn't. No. I'm not a fan of the Atom, but I really love that Shadow. That is a great, great knife.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, TRM is a company that I respect the hell out of them. Okay, this is a relatively limited piece, the full titanium atomic tie. They decided they ultimately weren't going to make many of these guys. But the machining that it shows off is just like, this to me was evidence that, less particularly at TRM, but of course, Marianne running the thing. Just amazing knife makers and knife designers, generally speaking. I have all the respect in the world for TRM and feel like they can do amazing work, and I think they, generally speaking, do. And they're putting the substance in alongside some of the Yu-Gi-Oh scale stuff, 100%.
Yeah.
Other overrated companies, we already talked a little bit about Emerson. I feel like,
Yeah, I have another one that's underrated that recently just showed me what they could do, and I just thought of it because I always say underrated. There's some companies out there. Like, I personally think that Kaiser is underrated. I see the quality that's coming out of Kaiser these days. Monterey Bay Knives, I'd like to say that they're underrated. I don't think they're underrated. I think that they're just they're not as well known. Women Carry Knives is on here. So is Peter from Edge. But Kubi, I got a knife from Jared, and I have a Kubi knife. And only thing it's ever done was sit in my workbench, and I used it to scrape the stropping compound off of my leather strop. That's the only thing I ever used it for. I was like, this is a piece of crap. This is the Kubi Raven, and I love this knife. This thing is awesome.
Huh. It's almost a little bit, what was it? Zach Brown, come on. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. I know what you're saying.
Southern Grind.
Yeah, Southern Grind. This is a Jelly Jerry design.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And it's in Aus 10. I sharpened it. I took it to 1,000 grit and then finished it on a ultrafine ceramic. And it's terrifying how sharp it got. The edge geometry is really good. The blade grind is good. The handle looks a little weird. I said it looked like Groot's penis, but not that I've seen it. I'm Groot. But it looks weird, but in hand, super comfortable. Cuts well. The geometry in hand is great. It like, when you get a knife and you like the knife, but then it just sits weird in your hand and you can't address the cut the way you want to.
Yeah,
it's none of that. Like this, I was like, okay, wow, good. Way to step up your game, Kubi.
They're a company who feels like they're right on the edge of getting to the point. Like, this is always a question I ask for my channel, because there are a billion little Chinese brands, right? And like the dice roll stuff that you get on AliExpress or Amazon or things like that. And it's always like, when do you want to start including these kinds of companies? And for me, a big line of it is like distributorship. Like, could I make a warranty return? Am I going to have to send somebody to a site that's selling clones to buy this pocket knife,
exactly.
etc.?
Well,
And do they have clones in their lineup right now? Or those
I was kind of afraid of that with Artisan when I decided that I was going to approach them about making knives. But then, you know, I got some of their stuff and I'm like, wow, they're on the ball. Like they're doing it pretty good. And they've got really good customer support.
They do. And Russell's amazing.
Even for stuff like a $35, $40 knife, they do a really good job.
That my beef with Artisan is that they have absolutely no fucking filter. They will release really nice pieces. Like, okay, here's an example, the Arroyo. You've had
I love
these,
that
right?
knife.
This is an amazing freaking knife, right? This is really good value. It's good. This is absolutely great. And then in the same breath, they will release these pieces that feel like they fell out of a freaking gas station.
You and I can't get into it online or on here, but I can definitely explain some of that to you. I'm in a non-disclosure, but I understand. I can trust you. But you're right. I see it. I know I knew it exactly the second you started down. I was like, I know what he's getting ready to say.
And they keep kind of walking right up to other designs. I'm not saying they're cloning anybody. Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is that there were ones where you look at them and you're like, oh, I know what you were looking at when you were doodling that. And it was, they keep doing that kind of stuff. And so if they had a filter, if they had somebody saying, you know what, let's not do this piece, then I think they would be an absolutely amazing company. But as it stands, they are a company with great eyes and great
I email the entire team all the time, like, what are you thinking?
Yes. Thank you. Be that person.
I am, and I try. 2A Dave. I got to pull it back up. I lost my mouse. I'm going to have to do it this way. 2A Dave says, such an amazing community here. You all awesome. Ding, 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 ding.
But yeah, so I think Artisan is one of those that is simultaneously underrated and overrated, depending on the time of day. Right?
Yeah, well, the quality is there. Like, and here's how I judge. This is how I judged it. Like when I really got like the first big care package from Russell at Artisan, like, oh, these are things that like if you want to do videos and stuff like that, he sent me the Mastiff, the Artisan Mastiff. This thing is amazing. I would put this knife at $200 up against $600 and $700 knives. Like I honestly would. The heat treat is amazing on that S35VN. The grind is done incredibly well. It's for as big and beefy a knife as this is, they left themselves enough relief to get it down thin enough that it's stable and usable like if you needed to chop with it, you could, but it still cuts well. I mean, everything about this knife was, even where they married up the carbon fiber, extremely well done. And I was like, okay, they've got that capability. And then once I was one of their designers, then I had the email list and I was like, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah, somebody there is their worst enemy. And
I'll catch you offline after.
Yeah, I'd love to chat about it at some point in time. But of course,
even as far as like as much as I love the knives, like that logo, and I know it's not what everybody says it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, does it need to be that big? Does it need to be that prominent? Can't we change something about it? I lived in Asia long enough to know that what that is. That's one of the stamps, the decorative stamps. It's an artified symbol that means something. I have one that is my name because that's how you sign legal documents in Japan.
Sure.
But most of the rest of the world doesn't understand what that is. And no matter how you explain it, perception is the reality. If someone sees it and thinks that's this, that's just always what it's going to be.
Yeah, and after a while, if you keep blowing the dog whistle, people are going to think you're calling dogs, right? So it's like, that's one of those things where I think there's probably, I would like to see that change. It's not the end of the world. I can respect that it means different things to different people, but it feels like somebody in marketing should have stopped them and said, guys, really, guys.
Yeah, I try. I mean, I say, I know. I'm like, you're reaching a point where you're like, I understand that this is what you want to do, but the fact is, like, it's going to end up affecting my ability to sell my design that you're making.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, 100%.
Jared Neves is here. I was showing him this. Thank you very much, Jared. This has rarely left my pocket since you told me it was mine. It's been getting it's getting a severe use testing. I've actually had to strap it twice now.
Very nice.
I cut down a ton of cardboard with this. This thing's pretty amazing. So this is a question I ask everybody on the channel.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna let you. I was gonna prompt you on it, but I figured this would be more fun.
Oh boy.
This is what I call my Franken knife question. So I was sitting around here at the house one night, and I thought to myself, I was looking at my knife case. I was sitting here in my garage, and I was watching some weird YouTube video. It was probably a chemistry channel.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And I was watching it, and I looked at my knife case, and I was like, what would be my perfect knife? Like if I could Franken knife and not have to worry about like how to make it work. Like if I could take the blade from any knife, the handle from any knife, the locking mechanism from any knife, the blade grind and steel from any knife, like what would be my perfect knife? And so I was thinking in my head, like a Spider Candura handle, the Reat Horizon Deep blade, like with a hollow grind and running on bearings with a really smooth backlet, like what's in the Steel Will Mini Gecko, which is like the smoothest lock back I've ever seen. And I was like, that's a good question for the podcast. So
that is a good question.
Any blade from any knife, any handle from any knife, any locking mechanism for any knife, any pocket clip from any knife, any steel and any grind.
Okay. What
would be your perfect Franken knife?
My perfect Franken knife. I like the Neutron. So I'm not saying this is the perfect one, but the DRM Neutron is a really nice start. I like the size of it. I like the kind of profile, the height of it. I like the thinness of it. I like the ability to swap scales. So there's a lot of joy in this guy to start with. I'm not necessarily, liner locks are great, but I'd kind of love to see a really nicely done button lock on it. Because good button locks are underrated, right? In terms of steel, I would probably go, I love the 20 CV they're doing here, but like LC200N or Vanax would be a really nice choice, I think, in terms of steel here. And then I kind of like the height of the blade is great, but I really do appreciate, the more I use it, the more I appreciate the Laconico EZC style blade, where it's just nice. It's thin.
Ray always makes good blade designs. They're always great.
I mean, to be fair, he always makes the same blade design, but that's because it's fucking good.
It fucking works.
Exactly, yeah. And so something that is sort of blending the best of these guys, maybe with a nice button lock, but keeping it very thin, keeping it light, keeping it in this size range, to me, that would be great. And, you know, I feel like the EZC series, the EZC series is not far off. I mean, if you look at like the EZC 2.0 here, you know, the full tie kind of an affair, it's really, really nice. But there's just a little something missing. And I think, you know, it could just be, but it's in that vicinity. It's someplace in that range. For me, I think that would feel very, very close to perfect. But at some level also, Mike, I got to be real with you. And, you know, to be fair, this guy actually isn't all that far off. Right, the Quiet Carry Waypoint. This guy here,
I love the Quiet Carry Waypoint. That's one of my favorite knives out there. I can't justify owning one because I've got so many other knives.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. They're really, really. It's a really nice piece. And if this were a little shorter, and the Quiet Carry Drift, by the way, is not far off either. You had one of the new drifts with the thumb studs?
No, I haven't. I just didn't like the drift just because you've met me. You know how big my hands are. The drift is just,
it's fair.
It doesn't sit in my hand the way I want it to. Yeah, there's a lot of knives out there that like people get upset. I've had makers and designers get upset because I said something about a knife, and I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. It's a great knife. It's just not a knife for me. I have why can't I think of it? It'll come to me. There's a really nice knife out there everybody loves, and I just can't carry it. It'd be just because of the way it sits in my hand. Nathan Dahl says, I knew Mike would hit with the best questions I've ever heard Nick answer.
I'll take him. Good. Keep it up.
I just like that's because everybody's going to answer it different.
Oh, yeah, you know? Absolutely. But I don't know that I would want one thing that would rule them all, right? I mean, part of the joy is, you know, one day you throw the Norseman in the pocket, the next day the Shadow, the third day the Neutron.
That's
right? There's a lot of...
The Koenig Arius. I love the Koenig Arius for what it is. And I've told Bill this. I was like, I love the knife. I could just never own one because I wear triple XL gloves. Tino over here can tell you they had to special order gloves for me at the construction site. When I get the Honig Aries in my hands, it slides. It's like my hand is forced down in, and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
As much as I love that knife, it's gorgeous. The action on it's amazing. The grind is just all but fucking perfect. And then I just it's uncomfortable in my hand.
And here I am wanting the mini areas pretty bad. So, that's the LBH factor, if you will.
I had said that I wanted to get the, I had said that my perfect knife, my Franken knife, would have a lock back, because I'm not usually a fan of the like the Axis style lock. But then I got this one and I was like, wow, that is so much better. And I think I told you that. That is so much better than the Benchmade Axis lock. It's way better.
Yeah.
It's so much better. And I'm like, Benchmade, how are you letting companies make a lock on their knives that is a lock that you designed, and they're doing it better? I have to scroll back up here, Nick.
Yeah, both Hogue and TRM have really just been like taking them to school.
Two Sons. So Q-Ball asked me, Nick, Two Sons, would you consider looking at a few? You and I talked about this. You said the same thing as me. By the time you find one you like, it's lost somewhere because they only made like 15 or 20 of them.
And they are also one of those companies I was talking about earlier, where it's just like, where are you buying these? Who's the distributor? Where are you? They are a company. I think they are probably the closest to the cusp of, like, as soon as they have kind of really made that effort to go legit, so to speak, to start working with a lot more knife retailers, having support and such, they are very, very close. I'm interested in a lot of their work, but right now, still, a lot of it is like I have to send somebody to a website that's going to be full of clones and ugliness. And I can't do that. And I want to be very clear about this. I am not looking down on anybody who's using these, carrying them, reviewing them. It's just at this point in time, with the amount of people, I guess, watching my stuff, I just feel badly about sending somebody someplace where they're going to see clones, and maybe they don't know that that's what they're looking at, and they genuinely think they're about to get a PM2 for $20. I
hate, and you've heard. Well, you've heard me like at the shop when we did a fair on Friday, and I'd had a few beers in me. Like I get irate, like I get livid, so upset about the clone. And the fact is, like I tell everybody, I was like, I know these people now. Now that I'm a knife designer and I've got the YouTube channel, I've been to a lot of shows. I know these people personally, and the fact that people are stealing from them, out and out theft, it just pisses me off. But I'm not gonna lie. I had Jared's here. He said they're at White Mountain Knives now, so you can get Two Sons at White Mountain Knives now.
And that's definitely a step up. And I want to see him keep expanding that, keep working with more retailers. Get the service area. Just really, they're not far off. I would love to welcome them into the fold.
Jared sent me one here. Before we moved, I was still at the old house before we sold that house. He sent me one, and I was like, wow, like, because I kind of thought Two Sons was kind of like, I was like, I don't know, they're kind of like I thought of like Kubi. I was like, they're just crappy. And then he sent me one, and it was titanium with carbon fiber, and it was a liner lock that you own, like it was a hidden liner all the way up to the lock bar. You didn't see that liner except at the actual lock interface, and I was like, this is a really nice knife.
They're doing good work.
Yeah, they are. And I can see, I'd like to see them be more consistent on having designs that are available all the time, and not like not pushing out so much and like flooding their, take a step back, guys. Do like 2 designs a quarter and make sure they're consistently available.
That's one of my frustrations. There are lots of companies that do this, but it feels like that's a trap a lot of the Chinese OEM companies fall into, is just the release everything over and over again and just throw a bunch of knives at the wall, see what sells. But the problem is, from my perspective, if you are a company that is producing, 800, being realistic, if you make 80 knives a year, different models, and for instance, 60 of them are really not good, then you mostly make shitty knives. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is. And the fact that you didn't continue making those doesn't make it better. if you're going to have a brand that makes stuff that's good, by the way, artisan. But anyways, this is just
they have some real winners.
They
my buddy
do.
Dylan, this
Centros.
is
Yep.
The Centros is, I mean, this is great. I love this knife.
100%. And I've been a big fan of a lot of their stuff. I mean, but it's the quantity thing. Like, stop making as many things and put more care into the ones you do make. And then you're going to win hearts. But right now, if somebody just says, hey, Nick, I'm looking at an Artisan, I'm looking at a Kube, I'm looking at a Tucson, I'm looking at a Cricket for that matter, I just can't. Is it good? I can't answer that, because some of the stuff is amazing. Some of the stuff is absolute dog crap. Yeah. And it's really hard to say. Speaking of Cricket, have you had one of these around?
What in the fuck is that?
This is the Cricket ritual.
Are you going marauding from one ship to another shortly? What are you doing? Are you a pilot?
Apparently, yes.
You have an eye patch? What
assisted 12C27 gigantic. This is actually paper micarta.
Oh my God.
This is like the dumbest thing that they have made. That's amazing. Like, you handle it, and it's just hilarious.
I may have to have you send that to me.
I will send this to you, just because. My God!
I mean, Mike. that is something that PDM can review. Well, I bought this because it looked so cool.
It is just
PDM has a very, very distinct Southeast Ohio, West Virginia accent.
There you go. Yeah, no, this is a great night.
Michael R goes, Mike's face, LOL. Like, I was like, what in the fuck is that?
I know, right? And that's the thing that this is best at.
You know what? I've bought knives just because of that. Like, you know what? I gotta have that.
It is dumb, but it is amazing.
You saw that split dagger, that Gil Hibben
exactly.
double shadow dagger, and I'm like, it just makes me smile. It made me happy.
And this is Alan Foltz, by the way. So it's like,
it's nuts.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts, and it's not badly done.
Did you say it's assisted?
It's assisted.
Well, I mean, look at the blade. You'd have to assist it.
No, I mean, it's just, and it's borderline scary to use with this backswept tip. It's like, holy crap.
I suddenly want to watch a Sinbad movie.
Exactly.
Not Sinbad the comedian, Sinbad in the Seven Seas. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you thought. Although Sinbad had his moments too. But yeah, no, it's a ridiculous freaking knife. But it's one of those examples of, like, they can do shit really right and they can do shit really wrong.
The first flipper knife I ever bought was a Kit Carson M16T Mini, titanium scales. And that's really what, like, I'd never had a flipper knife before that. And I got that and I was amazed. I got it in Hong Kong. I got it in a little shop in Hong Kong, and I carried that thing for years and I loved it. And I honestly wish I hadn't sold it, but it was one of the old CRKTs, and it wound up, I used it so much that the little nylon washers in it were getting bad, and no matter how much you tighten it, it had play, and guy wanted it, and he's like, man, I'll give you like $60 for it. And I was like, shit, I don't think I paid that much for it when I bought it. Yeah, it's yours, take it.
Yeah. The M16 is one of those knives that, I fully admit that this is my own personal, I'm not sitting here saying they are utter garbage or anything like that, but I hate that series of knives. Every time I handle one,
I gravitated towards those. That was the kind of knife that, at the time I was on the ship's visit board search and seizure team and things like that. And I needed something that I could use as a dual role, possibly, if I needed it for defensive purposes, I mean, I kind of liked, I gravitated. I had several of them. I had the desert one. I had the mini one. I had several of them. I like those, but I get where you're coming from.
And that may be just a kind of difference in, what we're doing, but I just never found anything that knife does that something else doesn't do better in 2020. And that's maybe the other thing is, like, at the time, I think it was a lot more groundbreaking than it feels right now. It's sort of an elder statesman of the budget knife world. And so I think there's a lot more competition now. And so I can very easily give you 10 other things that could fill that niche. But that is a knife that I just do not get. Like that knife is like somebody speaking freaking, Mandarin to me. Like I know you're saying something, and I know a lot of people would get it, but I sure
I
don't.
can absolutely see what you're saying now. But
Yeah.
back then, that was the first knife that I'd seen that had that kind of action. It was a flipper.
Absolutely.
And I was like, and it was thumb stud and flipper. And I was like, wow, this is great. This is something that I wish Elliot had never done.
Oh.
So this isn't a scepter. So I don't like, so what this is a septac. So this is so was it you or Nico that decided you guys were going to start that?
Nico.
So our little buddy Nico, the Hobbit,
Yep.
asked Elliot one time, he's like, could you put a scepter blade, which is the only blade shape that Elliot ever made that I didn't like. I don't like that blade. I don't know why. I just didn't. I told Elliot then, I was like, too bad that you made the blade look like that. He's like, well, I'm not making knives just for you, Mike. And, but then he took what is possibly one of my favorite knives that he's ever made, the NTAC, and put a scepter blade in it, and he called it the Septac for Nico.
Interesting.
And I'm like, way to go. Not only did you like completely ruin one of the last sets of NTAC scale, like that could have been used to make a perfectly good NTAC. So you ruined it. But Nico and Matt got these made. How many of these are there? I think Luke Albert has one of these too.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I think there's like 4 of these in existence. These are like ultra rare. I need to put that in. But this is the only lefty that exists, and it's a maker's choice.
Wow.
So he just
It's a gem.
Yep. It's not a gem. It's an abomination.
I'm gonna call it a gem just to troll you, Mike. It's certified 100%.
That's the best thing about being friends with knife makers, especially like some knife makers can't take criticism. That's actually on my scale, which doesn't give accurate readings. And I'm like, I don't think Nick really looked this hard. But like the cool knife, there's some knife makers that just can't take any criticism. Like you tell them something and they just get upset. But the cool thing about most of the knife makers that I know and I've made friends with is like you can joke about things like, yeah, it's too bad that knife looks great except for the blade. It looks like a dog turd. And you can get away with that with a lot of guys. And Elliot loves it. Like Elliot's like, hey, Mike, like he'll show me something he did, especially like if he's got a septac that one of the guys is like, yeah, I had to change stop pin. He goes, hey, Mike. And I'm like,
It's one of the things I actually really like about TRM, actually, is, Marianne and Les, I give them shit about, things that they do on a regular basis, and they give me shit back. Like, they're not afraid, I'm not afraid. It's a very nice working relationship of mutual respect and or trolling. I don't know if they respect me, but I respect them, so we'll take it from there. Right? But anyways, it's, yeah.
Oh, crap. Aiden says we should put Mike in a room full of knives that he hates.
Oh.
You wouldn't be able to fill a room. There's not that many knives that I hate. I hate things about knives. And I hate things about certain companies and certain individuals.
Of course.
Like there's just some people in a knife world that I'm like, yeah, I can't be friends with that person. You just talk to them, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can appreciate some of the stuff, and I'm just like, yeah, I just can't talk to that guy.
Yeah, it's just a different world.
Yeah, and you instantly pick it up. Like the second you talk to him on a show, you're like, it's cool. Let's go over here. I don't want to talk to that dude anymore.
Yeah, we're good. Thanks.
And then there's Brian Ty. And every time Tino and Nico can tell you, every time I go to a show and Brian Ty is there, I walk up and Brian's like, hey, I know you. And I'm like, yeah, you do. And he's like, I'll ask him a question. He's like, you know, outside. And I'm like, of course I do, because you got the best jazz cabbage at the show. And then I come back in and I don't even get a chance to talk to him because I completely forget to film. I've never have gotten Brian Ty on film. I've brought the camera and I pulled it up and I've taken some really good pictures of Brian because I was holding the camera and I thought that I was videoing, but I took a really good still of Brian Ty and I talked to him for like 15 minutes, like we were recording, and then walked away.
So you just have gray smoke pictures, basically, with Brian Ty in silhouette in the background.
I love that
Okay.
guy. He's so much fun to talk to at a show. He's such a stoner burnout. He's so much fun. And I know at this point, I know he's doing it on purpose. Like it's no longer a, hey, it was a happy accident. Like, no, like I have an honest question for him, like at the last show. And I'm like, Brian, I got a question. Like, how do you get the black on the Damasteel? Because it's really hard to get black on Damasteel.
Yeah, of course.
Like it's not like Alabama Damascus where you can darken it that much. And he's like, oh, hang on a second. Hey, I know you want to. And I was like, yeah. And then I came back and completely forgot the question. I'm like, you're doing this on purpose at this point.
It's one way of strategic advantage, right? You know,
right?
Not going to share, but you'll be happy anyways.
Bingo. I mean, it's just always fun. I miss going to shows. Like this whole COVID shit has really fucked up everything.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. Yep.
So the real Doomslayer says, hey Nick, do you like the Wii 810F Yacha? I think I pronounced that right.
Yucha, I have. See, this is part of the problem here. Is just like Wii releases so many things that I honestly have no freaking clue what knife that is. I don't think I've reviewed it. So best I could say is it maybe looks pretty, but I don't know. Unfortunately, I have no sense of what that knife would be. But Wii makes a lot of really nice stuff quality-wise. Do you have one?
Tino's here. Knives just keep showing up randomly. I look down at my case.
Oh,
nice.
Like,
that's not mine.
Hey, why not, right?
Yeah, I love the Wii knife stuff. I wish we could re-release the Stonefish as more of a budget model than my first design with them, but right now they're just full.
Yeah, they're let's see here, Wii Yucha.
Yeah.
That one. That's an old school piece.
I was gonna pull it up, but it's I can pull it up on the screen, but then it's a bunch of other stuff.
That's an old one. I never actually got a chance to handle that, but that's from back in the day.
Tino's like, yeah, you log in and it goes to your history and Pornhub pops up. And I'm like, yeah, and then the whole feed gets demonetized. And
yep, there were some things that you just don't show off in public, you know.
And then there are some things you definitely do.
Well, have fun.
So earlier you said you were going to have a hard time. Like the one to rule them all was a hard thing. So you're going to hate this question a lot.
Oh, good.
You're going to love this. You're going
to freaking say it, aren't you, Mike?
I kind of want to stick something in Mike's eye.
Yeah, get it over with.
If you could only have one knife for the rest of your life, what knife would it be?
I'm going to make a gesture under this coaster, and I'd like you to just consider what that could be. Probably a piece.
I know what it is.
Yeah, one for the rest of my life.
Now it's not like you're stuck with that original one. Like if you wear it out, you can buy a new one, but that's the only knife you can buy for the rest of your life. You can replace that with the exact same model.
Maybe the Neutron feels like a decent choice, or another good choice could be the Brad. I have a video where I just suffer while asking this question. Another decent choice would be this guy. It's kind of rare these days. Brad hasn't made a lot, but this is the Southern Knives Mini Tolk.
Yeah,
really,
you showed that, and I was like, I haven't seen one of those in a while.
I know, right? But it's really,
as a matter of fact, I think
good.
The last time I saw it was when I saw yours at the shop.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
like
the
I said,
I saw one.
Brad's a great guy, but by God, he doesn't make a lot of things. So
when he does, it costs a lot. When he does, nuts.
This one wasn't actually. This was like, I want to say 657 with 700. Yeah. Not terrible.
I mean, that's Spyderco. What was the Spyderco one he did? And I had one come in, and the guy that sent it to me was like, "Yeah, I cleaned it up and do an edge on it. I'm selling it." And he told me what he was selling it for. It was insane. And I was like, that's like 3 times what they were when they came out. And he goes, "Yeah, I know."
The Spyderco Southern he did, and then he did that one, the Hanen with the compression lock that was really, and the weird recurve.
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
No, that was unfortunately, that was really underdone by the factory. But Yeah, I think I would probably end up going with maybe the Drifted could be another good choice. The Southern, the Neutron, one of those guys I think would probably end up winning, right? Relatively short, like 3-inch or so, nice blade, thin, slicey. I think that would do it for me. And especially if I could also do a fixed blade, for situations of more abuse.
It's a sea snake, right? My little sea snake.
Well, I mean, you're clearly fishing for a plug here, but that's a nice choice.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I know what mine is a fixed blade, and it's not my design.
Which is it?
So if I could only have one knife for the rest of my life, I would have to go with the Mora Knives Companion in the carbon steel with the standing ground. It does everything I'd ever want to do. It's really comfortable. You can use it for a lot of different tasks. I'm not going to, like, if I'm going out in the woods, I'm going to take a hatchet. So I'm not going to have, they're great, super comfortable. And the fact is, if I have to replace it, I'm out, $16 on the outside?
Hey, man, yeah, that's for the money. They're really good. Actually, one knife that really shocked me this year was actually this guy. This is the Monterey Bay Knives. This is their Field Trekker.
Yeah.
Have you had one of these?
I have not, but I saw pictures of it. I talk with Sanford pretty regular. That is a beautiful looking knife.
It's beautiful. It's freaking badass. It's just a really, really nice knife. And they just finished the heck out of it. And it's got a convex. You might like that.
Yeah,
but
I've seen it. I have one that Somnium here actually has. I have a Bark River Knives. It is the North Country EDC 2. He currently has it. I sent it off to him so he could take some pictures and stuff, but that's another knife that is up there with ones that, if I only had one knife for life, because that full convex is just amazing.
100%. And so nice to maintain too.
Oh yeah. I mean, because
I love the look of a V-bevel, but at the same time, convex is just nice to strap up, right?
Well, with the convex, even if you do have to put it on a stone, all you have to do is, like, I'm not a fan of micro bevels. But on that, like, you can micro bevel that a bunch of times before you have to think about doing some actual full convex work on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I really wouldn't want to do, because the one that I got is a first production run and it's gorgeous. But it's an S45 VN, and I've only had to sharpen it once. It came terrifying sharp from the factory, and I think I used it. I cut down, like, I just wanted to test the S45 VN. I cut down probably 3 of the great big blue recycling bins worth of cardboard before I even had to think about putting it on a stone.
Okay, that's impressive.
I like S45 VN it impressed me. I'm impressed with it. It's pretty good. Ooh.
I haven't really put enough use into anything with it to have a strong opinion yet, but I'm glad to hear it's doing well.
Yeah, and I mean, it sharpens well, because, like I said, I put it on a stone. It sharpens really easily, and then, if you've got like an ultra fine ceramic, like I have one of the Spyderco ultra fine ceramic, I think it's a 3x8 plate, and it just, you can hone it right back up, screaming on that. Yeah, those are great.
You know what these are really great for? Washers.
Yeah, I do that. I've done that for so many people on their Sabenzas.
Yes. Yeah.
To clean up the Sabenza washers.
Oh, that can make a world of difference if you do it right. You're careful. You're not, like, if the washers are close, that can make it just like, oh my God, amazing.
Or if you're like me, you just carry it enough that it's just, just wear it in on its own.
That's the dream, certainly. But unfortunately,
I actually, this is my second one. I think I told you this. I had the original one and I sold it. And within a week, I was like, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. And this is a knife I can't ever sell. Like, I've said it to myself, like, I could sell probably almost everything else in the case, with the exception of a couple knives that have real sentimental value, like the stuff that Nico and Tino bought for me and stuff that Elliot gave me and things like that. Those I'd never part with. But I could sell everything else in my case and pretty much not really care. Yeah. But if I sold this, I'd be screwed, because I'd have to buy another one. I sold this. I had one in BG42.
Oh, wow.
The old school ones. And
was that a regular Sabenza? The pre-21? The BG42 one. Would that have been regular? It
was just a Sabenza. It didn't have, like, that was it. Yeah. It was just Sabenza. It was before they
had kind of the 3 cuts out on the handle.
It had the it was like a classic, they call them now.
Yeah.
They re-released them as the classics, but I'd had it for so long, and then I sold it to a guy, and then I immediately regretted it and got this one that's an S35 VN. Like 5 or 6 years ago. I got it right about the time I started the channel.
Okay, there you go.
So I don't know if you guys can tell. I'm like blinded.
It's
reflecting off my neighbor's house.
Oof.
But it's still 78 degrees in the garage. I can't close the garage door. So
yeah, it's a little warm out.
Yeah. So what was this? Yeah, Somnione. So you know, Nick, Somnione actually like has way more subscribers than you. Like you're the first person I've had that has more than 100,000 subscribers on the channel as a guest, and you would have to multiply by about 200.
Oh wow!
He's got well over 2 million subscribers on his channel.
I need to check this guy out.
He does music videos. It's awesome. Like I literally watch all the time. Great editing and things like that. Beautiful channel.
Okay, interesting.
Well done. I got it, man. I'm gonna give you a shout out every time. I don't care. What was this? I think people mistake Pete's sharpening for testing sharpness and dullness. I don't know what we're talking about. I have not been paying attention to the comments because I'm having fun talking with Nick. Okay. Something that you see people do with knives that makes your skin crawl.
Oh. Teflon washers? No.
Not makers. I'm talking about people.
I know, but I had to get a Teflon jab in there.
But you're right. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you.
I think the number one thing for me is like every so often I'll see somebody just like prying is the biggest thing, or not even necessarily like prying, but like, okay, for instance, in my bathroom, I have like a not a grate on the ceiling, but like an access panel. It's kind of painted shut. And you'll see people who like, get the knife underneath there, and they're not just cutting the paint. They're like pushing it in and then kind of twisting.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of shit where it's just like, oh no, stop. Like you can cut the paint, but don't, no.
The one that bothers me the most, and I had it happen to me. Like I let a guy, hey, let me borrow your knife. And he brought it back to me, and I went to go cut something with it. I was like, what did you do with this? And he's like, oh, I cut some speaker wire. And after that, I never let someone borrow a knife. And they would borrow a knife.
Speakers on? I mean, speaker wire is not like, unless it's like 50 gauge or something like that. What the hell?
He was installing his stereo. We were at work, and I was in the office. He said, hey, Mike, let me borrow your knife. I was like, all right, cool. And I didn't even think about it. That was the last time I ever handed someone one of my knives without the initial question of, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
That was the last time I ever did that. And he went outside and he had pulled speaker wire off of a spool and cut it to length with my pocket knife.
Probably on concrete.
No, he just like folded it over and just pulled it through. And I was like you couldn't cut anything with it.
Yeah, that's unpleasant. Yeah, I can see cutting wire as being, I can see that being a tough thing too. But yeah, for me, the prying is just what gets to me. But that's partly because I like thin, slicey blades, right?
Yeah, and that's, well, and I mentioned that in a video the other day where, I used to, and even if I was still doing the things that I used to do, I think I would, in retrospect, be more inclined to carry knives with thinner blades. I used to think that like a thicker blade was so much less prone to, I thought I was going to break the blade, but I'm like, now that I know as a knife maker now, and knowing more about the metal and how it works and heat treats and things like that, that I was uninformed. And then I met Elliot and I went, there's so much stuff you're shoving in my head right now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
yeah, I think there's definitely benefit to it. And frankly, the right tool for the job is a thing.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's nothing wrong with carrying a slicey knife and a pry bar. And I think in that case, you've got everything you need. Right. Yeah,
exactly. Well, I gotta, if you're gonna say it, I gotta give a plug to my buddy Chris over at Cerberus Knives. He has a whole bunch of American-made 3V pry bars
Interesting.
He's building himself. He's doing some glow in the dark inlays. He's using pocket clips that are coming from, I forget who it is that makes the Benchmade secondary market pocket clips. They're set up to hold those. They look amazing, and I want to get one, but they are expensive because they're American made, small batch. They're being done right here in California. So if you guys are looking for one, Cerberus Knives has got some pry bars up there, and they're good. There's some good looking piece of tooling.
And that's one of those things where it's like, there are a lot of people who make pry bars, but that's one of those things that is relatively more easy to do as a small artist, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can make a pry bar pretty straightforwardly. Like a folding knife, there's a lot of intricacy. There's a lot more startup things, but I really encourage people to go out and find a maker who is maybe getting started, who is, working out of their garage or something. Do that, give them some love, give them some support. And, that's always a nice thing.
I mean, I've got a pry bar that I carry, and I never would have thought I would have carried a pry bar. But when I went to Blade Show West, as a designer for We Knife Company, Doris came up. She said, "Oh, Mike, we have stuff for you," and they gave me some pins. They gave me a bunch of these. They gave me like 3 of these. They're like, "Oh, for your wife and your daughter," and this. And I was like, I got like fidget spinners, and I was like,
okay, we've got a lot of pocket frosting around.
But I've got 3 of these, and I'm not gonna lie, this winds up spending a lot of time in my pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're solid little tools.
So Sinister, Duke, he doesn't have a website. You have to find him on Instagram. And I think they're all sold out, just like Somnium said. They're definitely sold out. But he's a good kid. I did a video with him, and he makes aftermarket scales for Spydercos and stuff like that. And he took the time. Nick, you will appreciate this. He took the time to get in as many Spyderco knives as he could, in and out. He bought them and sold them, and measured them so that he could get the plus minus average for all the Spydercos that probably would be on the market.
Interesting.
Before he started making them, so that unlike Flytanium, you don't have to modify his scales at all to try and make them fit.
I'm going to be honest with you.
Plus minus.
That's great, and I really applaud that. But I've been looking at a couple of different Flytaniums, and I've actually not had any problem with fit. But given mine are relatively new, I gather they had some issues early.
They're new, and they're under new ownership.
Oh, okay, that could be.
So I literally had probably 15 of those come in from friends, and they're like, and customers, and they're like, "Hey, I can't make it fit. Can you take?" And I was like, "I'll take it to the shop. We'll figure it out." And literally half the time I had to go like, "You need to get a hold of them and get your money back, because we can't make this fit."
Oof. Yeah, like I said, I think the ones I've had have been great, but also newness is a big thing, right?
I think I can't remember who bought Flytanium. It's like Blade HQ or KnifeCenter.com, one of those two. But
they're based out of Utah, not far from Blade HQ. I don't really know the story, but I kind of was under the impression that there was some kind of connection, maybe former employees or something. But
I think they just bought it. I think they bought them, and then Blade HQ. Everybody at Blade HQ is cool. I've talked with those guys because I've tried to push knives going their direction as a designer. And KnifeCenter.com has always been cool. They stock my knives because I asked them to.
That's nice.
They were kind of hesitant, and they were like, "All right, we'll try it." And now David C. Anderson mentions my sea snake design in so many videos, and I'm like, he told me, he's like, "No, it's not like I'm trying to." He's like, "It's a very good design." He's like,
it's a very solid little knife.
He likes to bring it. He's like, like they did one the other day here not too long ago. The reason that I have that crazy dagger, because they did concealed carry fixed blades, and he's like, "Well, this is one you're gonna want right there," and I'm like, "That's my knife."
Yeah. And in that capacity, that's a really nice choice, 100%.
I just like, my designs are always just straightforward and just like, it has a purpose, it has a use. It's not got frills and things like that. It's just it's a straightforward user.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And you know what? That's great. I think there's room for all kinds, right?
So you ready for some fun questions? Like, these aren't like these are honest fun questions, Nick. I have a couple of fun questions for you. What are some of the weirdest communications you've had from either companies or fans?
Okay. From companies, I get a lot. So, as you've probably noticed, as the channel starts to grow, you start to hear more and more from influencer companies. And
Yes.
apparently 100,000 was a major line because I started getting people who were just shot in the dark. I've got a video coming out about this at some point in time, but I actually had somebody message me, a company who sells electric breast pumps, breast warmers, which I didn't even know was a thing, by the way, and
breast
one
warmers
other thing that
or
was
breast
related
milk
to
warmers?
spawning.
Is it, wait, breast warmers or breast milk warmers?
That would make more sense. It would probably be a breast milk warmer, but this was
Right.
not, the people sending this, English was not necessarily a skill set.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I gotcha.
but but because they had breast warmers and electric breast warmers, and I was just trying to, okay, that makes more sense. I feel better about the world slightly. But anyways, in case you haven't been able to tell, I know not everyone here is going to be subscribed, but I don't tend to review parenting supplies. I don't actually have. Well, okay, I got a little bit of breast action going on here, but not the kind that they're interested in, right?
Sinister says, "I'm a certified breast."
Yeah, but so that was probably the weirdest email I've ever gotten from a random company trying to get in touch with me, because it was just like, did you just like email everybody with over 100,000 subscribers? Is that the way you roll here?
It's usually when you start hitting close to 6,000. That's when they start getting in touch with you. They really want you at 10,000. And if you got 100,000, they're like, "Yeah, we're gonna send you everything in the kitchen sink."
Every morning, and it's morning because business hours are not the same in the places that they're sending these from. And so every morning I wake up and I've got like probably 8 to 10 just random approaches for, in some cases, actually things maybe plausibly related to the channel, but like exercise bands, jewelry.
I got exercise bands. I got, have you gotten, what is it? The Ancient Treasures. Have you gotten anything from them yet?
No, but I'm pretty intrigued.
But Tino's grabbing the necklace for me. They actually sent me a sample of the goods.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's a full-on Mjolnir.
You've seen these on Instagram, right? Like,
oh, wow. Okay.
It's fucking heavy. And I'm like, guys,
Ancient
I don't know.
treasures.
Like, I appreciate the gift. It's like a Nordic anchor.
Yeah, Mjolnir. It's a Mjolnir.
It's a Mjolnir. Yeah, it's Thor's hammer is what it is. And I'm like, I mean, I appreciate it's they're not bad. I mean, the quality's not bad, but it's just not something that I'm gonna do. Now, there are some stuff I did. I had a company that sent me a free basically because I wanted a good neck pillow, like a cervical pillow.
Yeah.
They sent me one, and I'm like, I'll give it a try. But I've tried all the ones. I've tried the cube one because
Sure.
I've had so much. I told you the story. I broke my neck when I was in my 20s. And so I have a lot of neck pain when I sleep. They sent me a pillow that's amazing. And I was like, if it's not good, I'm not going to do a video. They're like, no, that's fine. They sent me a pillow that is just outright freaking amazing. And I'm using, like, my wife is getting one. That's how nice it is. I'm like, wow, that's great. And they sent me one for free.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
So, I told him, I was like, yeah, if you're willing to send it, I'll do a review of it. And then YouTube took it down.
Oof.
I don't know why. I don't know what happened.
Chances are they were paying off a lot of people to do that, and YouTube got wind of it, right? I mean, that's the funny thing is these companies just spam a bunch of people.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna lie, it's probably the best pillow I've ever used. And like,
sure.
Like, if it's a good product, I'll bring it to. I was like, tell them that. I was like, don't, like, if it's not good, you're not getting a video. Don't think just because you send me a free product, you get a pass.
What's funny is the number of people who will offer to send me something that is, in range of my channel, right? Like a flashlight or a piece of gear or something like that. I send them my disclaimer and they run. They freaking bail.
I wanted to
funny.
ask you, like, does everyone, because I know, like, I walked into it sending you my knife 100% knowing exactly what I was getting into.
Oh yeah. I mean, and
I knew, in my heart knew it was a good design and I knew it was well executed.
Did I send you my disclaimer when you did? I feel like
You
I
didn't
probably
have to. Like, no, we talk enough. I was like, all right,
yeah, you know what you're in. You know what's on the tin there, Mike. But,
exactly. That's one of the nice things about being friends with other
Yeah.
YouTube creators. Like, yeah, that's just how it works.
yeah, you
And
know that I'm
I'm
going
the
to
same way. So guys, just so you know, I don't necessarily always throw out the disclaimer, but you get what you get. Like, I'd say how much I hate that knife that Elliot makes. That
Yeah.
I hate the Scepter. I don't like anything about that knife, and I don't know why. I just don't like it. And I was like, yeah, you probably shouldn't sell this. And he goes, well, I don't make knives just for you, Mike. I was like,
Yeah.
that's the only design he's ever made that I really didn't like. So I mean, I don't even hold back from Elliot.
Yeah.
But you know, no one gets a free pass. And but I like, you did send me, like, I told you I was going to send it. You're like, well, you know, and I was like, yeah, I already know.
yeah. But you know, I do send that to pretty much everybody, and I think a lot of people are kind of aware. And I think the makers who are aware, and oftentimes I'll send them that, and sometimes I'll get back, hey, wow, that's actually really cool. That's really well written. And in some cases, I just never hear from them again. And at that point, I figure I have just dodged a bullet, because that is a person who would be massively pissed off if I, had done the review honestly, and because if they can't even stomach the thought of a negative review, then I imagine getting one from them. So I think that saved me a lot of assholes.
I did a review of a knife not long ago, and I didn't say anything bad about the knife in general. And the guy actually kind of was upset and talked to the person that had got the knife to me. Not to call anyone out. I mean,
yeah,
but I mean, everybody falls in love with what they've done. Like, I love my sea snake and I love the stonefish, but I've seen bad reviews of it, and I almost take it personally. And then I think, I told Elliot that a knife he designed was a piece of shit, basically. So how can I get upset? And Elliot's been doing it so much longer than me. But I basically had a guy that really got upset about something I said in the video. And I was like, I didn't really say anything bad. I just, like, it didn't fit my hand and I mean, like I said, you and I have shook hands. They're not normal size. There's a lot of knives out there that just aren't for me, that would be perfect for like 99% of other people.
Yeah. And no, there were definitely thin-skinned makers out there. And, at some level, I totally understand it. Right. But it's just like, at a certain point, they don't want me. I don't want them. And, we two strangers in the night passing and moving along. Right. I'm very happy with that. And I feel like, and this may be, confirmation bias 100%, but the makers who are very confident in their product and who have really put in the time and thought everything through, by and large, are going to be completely okay with what I'm doing. You said it yourself. I feel strongly and passionately that I thought this through. And so, he might have some complaints, but I didn't miss anything big.
No, you didn't. The only thing you said in your review was you talked about, like, the lack of, I forget what it was. You said something about the clips or something like that. And I was like, I thought that I had told you, like, I put the soft loops in the box for you because I wanted you to be able to carry it, because I know you have restrictions on carry, and you missed that point. And I was like, you know what, if that's the one thing that got missed, but I dropped a comment. And so,
And,
I have never felt that I would send that knife off to anyone that would give it a bad review. And if they did, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, I had enough faith. That knife design had been around I had played around with that knife design for almost like 2.5 years before I even tried to bring it to market. And Elliot was like, when are you going to sell that thing? Like, when are you going to have that released? And I was like, why? And he goes, it's a great knife. Aiden says he wants a knife with the M1 Garand ping. And you are absolutely right. That would be amazing. That would be, as a weapons guy,
of it,
that would be great.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I think a lot of makers who get really bent out of shape about reviews and things like that are failing to realize that just because I say something is a negative, that doesn't mean it's a negative to everybody, right? I mean, chances are, at any given video, and I get people in the comments even like, that's not actually bad, how dare you? And it's
I mean, you're just always going to have trolls and haters.
You're going to have that too. But the thing is, for some people, I might say, this knife is too damn big, right? This doesn't fit my small. And for somebody, it's going to be, I know there are people out there who are like, oh, wow, it's too big for Nick, I'm going to love it. And so it's like, I think there's you are that person.
I am that person. Like Nick's like, it's too small. I'm like, that's perfect for me.
Yeah. And so I think you have to keep in mind that, people are not just mindlessly listening to my videos. People are, figuring out what works for them and, making their own decisions. And in many cases, just because something was not great to me, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I like sharpening. So
there was a knife
Lost
that you and I can't remember what it was. You and I talked about a knife that we had vastly different. It's been a couple years ago. There was a knife that you and I talked about just after the Vegas show when you were there for my birthday.
The Vegas show. Yeah. What would that have been?
Tino says we should both hold our Norsemans to compare hand size. I'm like, it's not much of a comparison.
Yeah, I mean,
mine all but disappears.
I think that kind of that about
like mine looks like
yeah. LBH factor is a thing.
I have to say, and I've got to say, like I've said it a bunch of times in videos, I think that the night that I got to have dinner with you, Will and Eric Touch, Aaron Frederick, and Nico, I think that was probably one of my favorite nights.
That was amazing
at any knife show.
Yeah, that was a joy.
That was joy. I actually talked with Eric Touch 2 days ago.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're going to make the Blade Show West, but they are going to. He said he's going to try and at least maybe go because they didn't go to Blade because they just couldn't get stuff finished. And that's another. Sure. This is another thing that I like to ask. So, haven't been to a lot of shows. Do you see that there's a lot of custom makers that kind of just like, you can see that they like kind of procrastinate, and then like the week before they show, they jump through their ass and made like 12 knives in a week. And you can definitely see the quality. I'm not asking you to call anyone out, but
no, of course. What I'll say to that end is like, I don't understand. I'm not a knife maker, right? And I say that it bothers me to stand in judgment of knife makers. Clearly it doesn't, because I do it all the goddamn time. But at the same time, like I have to acknowledge that, who am I to say, oh, you just put that one out at the last minute? Like, all I can do is speak to what's on the table. But what I can say is that very, very often going to knife shows, there are tables where the work is impeccable, where it's just like you look at it and you're like, oh my God, this is how you have the name that you do. Or in some cases, how do you not have a bigger name than you do? That's fine too.
I've seen that at a couple shows too.
Rainy Day Knives at G10. Did you handle this stuff?
That's exactly the one I was getting ready to talk about. That sway back that you had was amazing.
Yes, it is. And he was a person where it was just like, how the hell are you not more prominent than you are? And he's been doing really well, it seems like. So I'm thrilled to see that. But no, and then there were definitely makers where you get to their table, and for whatever reason, whether it's for procrastination or just for lack of giving a crap, every single thing on the table is just like, you're not impressing me much here. Or like, I guess my test is always like the Sleege Bowie test, right? If a knife is not as good as a production Spyderco in terms of things like fit and finish, in terms of smoothness of action, in terms of grind, in terms of that kind of thing, then in my mind, I totally, and here's the thing, I completely respect the amount of time and effort and cost and whatnot involved in creating a custom knife. I'm happy to pay somebody extra money for their handwork. But you cannot create something that is sort of objectively worse than even like a PM2 in terms of all of those main things, and then still expect to charge me $800, $900, $1,000. I don't see that. You have to do it right if you're going to do that.
I'm not going to lie. I was at Cali Custom Show. And I mentioned this to Eric. I was at Cali Custom Show, and I had a guy come up to me that knew me. And he's like, hey, Mike, I know you don't know me. I watch your channel. He's like, but like, I just bought this knife from this person. And it was a fixed blade. And it's like, you've been to custom shows, especially the Cali Custom Show. And, like there's so many fixed blade Damascus buoys. And so it was a fixed blade knife, and it was, and he brings it up and he goes, I don't want to say anything to the guy, but can you sharpen this? Because he didn't even put an edge on it. I was like, no, you just paid how much? He paid like $900 for this knife. It's like, no, you walk your ass over there and you tell him, you pull him aside. You don't embarrass him in public. You say, look, you keep the money. Here's my address. You send it to me when it's right. You just paid $900 for a knife from a custom maker, and he didn't even have the time to sharpen it before he came to the show. But then you have other guys. You have guys that get it right every time.
Absolutely.
Todd Rexford. Anytime I've seen any of his knives at a show, they're not knives that I would buy unless, like I did that time where I knew I could flip it, and I bought one for $2,000 and flipped it for $12,000.
Nice.
That I was like, yeah, I know I can sell this, but I wouldn't buy one for me.
Yeah, of course.
Michael Randolph, Bob
Raymond.
Terzuola, Michael Raymond, that's what it is. Bob Terzuola, Mick Strider. Like, I got that custom Strider SMF that I had that I sold. Those guys, they bring things to shows that they know are good. Brian Nadeau. There's a whole bunch of those guys, and they just do it the same way they would do it every day, and they just make a couple extra and they bring them to shows.
Yeah. And you know, those are the people where I walk out of the show and I'm like, okay, I think Raymond's a perfect example of this. I don't believe I'm ever going to own one of his knives, and I'm actually very sad about that fact.
The last time I saw one, it went for $17,000.
And the funny thing is, like, I can say, there is a debate to be had as to whether a knife can ever be worth $17,000. But that's sort of a different sort of debate. But I
have knives that didn't cost $100 that I wouldn't sell for $17,000. Well,
exactly. But like in any kind of an objective sense. But the problem is, like, if you handle his stuff, it's like, holy shit, this could be worth $17,000.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. His stuff is good enough that it's like,
all of it handmade, the carbo quartz, the tooling, everything. Like, I didn't get it until I saw him at Cali Custom Show, and he was walking me through everything, and I was like, yeah, this is a $10,000 knife. Like, I get it.
It's just like, oh my God. He's
and then
so good.
People are like, you paid how much for that? And I'm like, dude, trust me. Like, it's the value is there. Like, there are things about it that other people don't like. Well, I can see past those because I can see the value in it.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so I think that's the thing. Like, whether it's because of procrastination, and by the way, this is one of the things. One of the reasons. Well, actually, I'm sorry. One of the things that I do behind the scenes that I don't really talk about that much is like stealth reviews, where makers and I charge like bigger companies for this, but anybody, their first piece, they can send it to me, and I will look at their piece and I will tell them the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of it completely for free. And if I love it, I might put it on the channel, but you know, I'll do these kinds of things. And especially for newer custom makers, it's great because I can sometimes discover people who are doing amazing work, or I can provide private feedback of like, compared to the other custom makers I've seen, you know, this is where you're falling down a little bit. This is where you're really doing great. This is about where I want to see something like this at a table price wise. And, you know, that way I'm not calling them out. I'm not, you know, publicly humiliating anybody. And hopefully, and in many cases, I've seen them make a major improvement down the road.
I see him again. Did that for Scorpion 6 knives.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, it's a great
approach. I met him at a show, and they're like, oh, I was like, okay, let me look at your knives before I up and put them up on the channel. And I gave them a little bit of constructive criticism, and they were like, that's cool. Thanks. I didn't charge them anything for it. I was like, I wanted to see the knife, and I got it. And there were just only a couple of items. And it was like little hot spots, like little, you know, chamfer this,
exactly.
Clean this up, scallop this out so that you can get to the lock bar a little bit. And it was fun because I got to see something and affect a change. And I think they've actually done really well since then. I haven't gotten a chance to see them.
No, and that's exactly it. And, you know, it's not like what I'm telling them is, you know, crazy, you know, secret information or anything. It's just like, I can understand that it must be really, really hard to balance all of the different things that you got to get right exactly in a piece that you're making as a one-off piece. And so it's just like, in a lot of cases, it's just like, oh, this is one little detail that could be improved here. And then just like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. And that's the kind of level where it's just, and that's, I think, how these makers can earn the $1,000, not by talking to me, but just like by thinking about all of those little tiny things. Like if you look at a Raymond, it's just like every damn part of this was thought well completely. I mean, was done perfectly.
The fact he's like Grimsmo and makes every part of it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, of course.
Like people are like, oh, so what? Like I was like, no, you don't understand. Like when people are like, so what? It's like, no, like Grimsmo doesn't buy screws. Grimsmo doesn't buy, he buys the balls for the bearings, but every part of that is made.
Oh yeah.
Todd Rexford, every part of that was made by him.
You got to
I mean,
respect that.
You have to respect that, and it addresses that price. And I've asked the question a bunch of times to other people, like 2021. There are so many companies that make such incredible production knives.
Yep.
Are custom knives still a thing? Well, it depends on what you want.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, like, there's little nuances and things that, like, even little flaws in a knife will add to the value to that person, because it shows the handmade nature of that knife.
This is where we get into the discussion of, like, oh, it's got soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Which is a dumb thing to say, but it's also very real.
I took Japanese martial arts. I took the sword arts. My father-in-law is from a family where they still have a family suit of armor and the imperial sign above their door, because my wife comes from a samurai family, a feudal family. And when he came out to San Diego and he came to Elliot's shop and he saw how I was sharpening knives after he taught me how to use stones, and after he saw what Elliot was doing, he told me in Japanese, and he looked at all of us and says, "You guys found the soul of that steel."
There you go.
There is a lot. Like, I do not own but a couple of production versions of Fair and Forge knives, but I don't own any of their in-house versions that were done again. Like, I don't have like your Archbishop 2.0.
Yeah.
I have a original Archie. I have a one-off.
Nice.
I've handled those and they're great, but there's something to be said for what goes into them, hand building those knives, hand tuning those knives, adjusting that detent, like basically adjusting the lockup and all the things that go into it. This has a different feel. As good as that knife is, I wouldn't trade this for that. Even though those were more consistent, there's something with this that you can feel when you.
I think a lot of that is hand care, right? Like, okay, Steve Skiff, have you had one of his?
Who?
Skiff Made Blades.
Yeah.
This is
Steve
a person.
Does great work. His knives are great.
They're awesome, and the thing is, they're CNC, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're computer made knives, but he does enough of the finishing work that I feel like it has that element, right? There is, if you handle them, like, the designs are not going to be for everybody, and in fact, I would say the designs aren't for me. But at the same time, I'm sorry.
The only problem I had with any of the Skiff Made, but Nico bought one, and it was a beautiful knife.
Yeah.
That pocket clip was so long. The first day I carried it, I caught my seatbelt in it, and I got ready to take my seatbelt off, and I was like, oh, I almost broke off the pocket clip on Nico's brand new $800 custom knife.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually mind a longer clip personally, but at the same time, for me the flipper tab is kind of what kills the crab. Those are big. That's a big honking freaking flipper tab on there. I know, I'm good. Thank you. But at the same time, I think this is talking about soul is not saying handmade. I think it's just the care. Brian Nadeau is another person. You were talking about the arch nemesis earlier, weren't you?
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, the arch nemesis dagger. Like, I was sick having to send that, even though that I didn't buy it. It's not like I was sick because I was selling a knife that I had bought. I literally, the only thing I did was broker the deal, because he's like, "You're friends with Brian, right? Can you talk to him?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll talk to him." And brokered the deal, wired the money to him, and then picked the knife up so that I could do a video about it. And I literally was sick to my stomach about putting it in a box and sending it off. It was like the first time I put my child on a plane to go. So when she went to the international competition in Netherlands, putting her on a plane to go without me. And I was literally sick to my stomach about it. I loved that knife. It was amazing.
Brian does amazing work. And in fact, one of these days, he's going to make a custom knife, like one of his custom pieces that is Nick Shabazz size, and I'm going to own one of his customs. Like, I've told him outright, it is a problem that I don't own one of your customs. Next time you make one that's Nick size, let me know. I'm happy to.
What, like the whippersnapper size?
I mean, like, something in the 3.25, 3-inch range. He does them with the productions that are great, but it's just a lot of his big stuff, and I don't blame him. He likes big knives, no freaking problem. But it's
Brian,
just.
Have you met Brian? He's not a little guy.
No, he's not, and I've all the respect in the world for him, and he's going to do what he's going to do. But it's just like, I know that if I spent $1,000 on, more than that, like $1,500 on a knife, I was literally not going to carry just because it's huge. That'd be a shame.
So some Neon asks, I'm curious, at what price point does Nick Shabazz draw the line and say that's simply too much? I can't.
You're killing me here. If I were to draw
That's a
like
good
a
question,
line in the
Matt.
sand, like, okay, the most expensive knives that I have owned for myself are going to be in like the 2,000 range. Like, okay, this Herman is way up there. This was like 2,500 retail,
I would
right?
say
this is a lot of money.
I thought it was going to be more. I thought it was more than that, actually. But hey,
no, it's he does. I mean, they're not that bad. He says for about a $2,500 knife. But no, I mean, so that's kind of where and the thing is, once I start getting into like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5,000, it's just like, okay, because I had a Stan Wilson non-flipper flipper on my table. Stan Wilson, another one of those people, just like, you can't say negative things about it because holy shit.
Yeah.
But like, that was a knife that I was very, very happy to have on my table. A great guy loaned it to me for the channel just for a quick review. But there was no temptation to send it back because I look at my life and I think, $10,000 would be a massive amount there are so many things that $10,000 could be for me. And I don't think a knife is one of them.
I have to agree. And then every once in a while, you get one in hand and you're like, I mean, does the kid really need to go to college?
Yeah, I get that. Like the Raymonds do that for me, where it's just like, I seriously wonder, like, could I, like, what if I moved some money around? But
you're never having kids, right, hun?
Yeah, I mean, tubes are still tied. But no, I would say it's probably not far off of the 2,000, 2,500, 3,000 range. I don't see myself going much higher than that. Like ProTech,
but doesn't it always find its way to inch its way forward? Like you find it like when I first started collecting knives and I first got in, it was like the old school Benchmays. They were like $100, and then the next thing you know, you're into cold steels that were in the really nice ones. They're like the 130 range, and the next thing you know, you're spending like $200 on a knife, and the next thing you know, you drop 1,200, and you're like. And at some point in my life, I was like, 1,200, that's not too bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it may creep up as my means hopefully increase. My line might increase. And what's funny is I'm willing to spend more on a wristwatch. But the thing is, a wristwatch I can wear pretty much every day. And, it's a little harder to lose.
I luckily have never gotten into the pins or wristwatch.
Do not get into watches, Mike.
I use my Apple Watch. It's perfect. It's good for everything I would ever want to do. They're not that expensive. I can use it all the time. But the flip side of that whole expensive knife thing is I find myself going back to $65 knives and going, this is pretty fucking all right. You know what I mean?
This guy, Civivi McKenna Brass 154 CM. This is an amazingly designed knife. It's well enough implemented. It was like, I want to say $70, something like that.
Yeah, I would say I think they're 60 or 70.
Yeah, this is a knife I could very happily carry. If somebody stopped me tomorrow and said, Nick, this is the only knife you ever get to carry for the rest of your life, I would be sad, but it wouldn't be like the end of any worlds, right? If I got, pinged that, with one of the artisan specials we were talking about earlier, then that would be a very sad day for me. But like this, I could do. Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, that wasn't shade on the Arroyo. That was the other ones. But no, I mean, you're right. I think it is important to remember that, $2,500 knives are amazing. And so are $60 knives if they're done right.
Well, like I said, this was what was in my pocket today.
Yeah, exactly.
I had this down near the inseam. I had this up near the zipper, and I had my flashlight. So if I was going to do a pocket drop, this is what I had. I had my Olight Baton 3. I had my Norseman, and I had now I can say my Gracioso by Kaiser. So I mean, it's a lot of fun to be able to have that. The fact is, there's so many quality knives now. It opens up such a broad spectrum. Before there weren't good production knives. Like I remember when there were not good production knives. Really, they were like Either you got customs and you paid through the nose.
Yeah.
Or you got like mid-tech style stuff, like when Rick first started making knives, and I paid way more than I should have.
You mean Hinderer, right?
Huh? Yeah, I had a Hinderer XM18. And I got it. And I was so excited. And I paid through the nose on the secondary market, even though I was still active duty military. And there just weren't any available. And I got one on the secondary market, and it came. And I was like trying to, because I had already had a flipper. And I got that one. I was, this is going to be great. And I flipped it, and it went that far. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? You had to wrist flick the shit out of that knife to even get it close to locking up. And I was like, what is this shit?
Hinderer is a company that has done a lot of growing the last 4 or 5 years.
A lot. Rick has done a lot of changing.
Yeah, like for a long time, Rick was like there were makers who are, I'm sorry, there are knife designers who are really great at that. There were knife makers who are really great at that, and there were people who are good at both, and there were people who are not good at both. And for a long time, Rick was a great designer, and his designs were made way better by ZT, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the way to get a good Hinderer, was to get the production versions.
Kind of like Emerson. If you want a good Emerson, you get a Kershaw.
Yep, that's a sad truth of the world. Yes. But yeah, I feel like it is now the case that I can without question recommend Hinderer knives. Like the Tri-Way thing is a great idea. It's worked really well for them. Hinderer is that is one of the bigger 180s I think that's happened in the knife market in the last 5-6 years.
I still have a big problem with his pocket, or not pocket. I always do that. I'm talking flipper tab. His flipper tab. I'm like, Rick, I love your knives, but why is the flipper tab on backwards? Because it hurts the fuck out of my finger.
Yeah.
And I forget that he was a fireman, and with the big gloves, and they needed to be like that. I get it, but like still, it sucks. You're not a fireman.
The half track flipper tab was better. That's for sure. But
I have the only Hinderer I've ever had that was comfortable, and it's the Fire Tack, and it's because it doesn't have flipper tab.
Yeah, exactly. I can see that. Exactly. Yeah, no, I think Hinderer, I'm very impressed with the leaps and bounds with which he's grown in the
Nick,
in
you
the
remember,
time.
You remember we were talking, and I said that me and Jim ran the full 2 hours, and it didn't even feel like it. We're at 2 hours and 11 minutes. I told you, time flies when you're having fun.
Time sure does fly. Yeah, I should probably let you go.
Well, I was going to say, so last thing, we'll do story time.
Yeah, go for it.
I have a story that I was going to tell, but I will let you tell me the funniest thing that has happened to you at a knife show.
Oh, the funniest thing that's happened to me at a knife show. Meeting Lynn Thompson. I already kind of told this story. That was that was way up there, just because he's pulling out all these huge jackassy knives, and it was just like. And Andrew Demko is standing right behind him, by the way. For
like
all
his
of this.
gimp, was he on a chain? Having him on a chain like the gimp from?
No, it was more like his muscle. Like Andrew's just standing behind him, arms crossed, and I'm just
he's a big dude too. Andrew's not a little dude. Like I'm 6'3", and I looked at Andrew. I was like, "You're a big dude, man."
Yeah, he's a big dude. All the respect in the world, but yeah. So that was a pretty good one. Oh, what else? So on Wandering Blade Show. With Frankie and Bird. This was in like 2017 or something like that. And I'm, keeping relatively quiet. And Frankie and Bird, a fan of theirs, comes up, running up to him, says, "Oh my God, Frankie and Bird. And, they're talking with him. And, Bird looks at me and says, "Oh, hey, have you seen Nick Shabazz at the show?" And because I don't show my face, people don't generally know.
Bird told me this story. Bird told me this exact story.
On the show?
No, on the phone.
Well, I'll tell it here. So they get him go. They say, "Oh, yeah. So you see Nick?" I says, No. And Bird says, "Do you have a Nick Shabazz impression?" And I'm just, at this point, I am kind of like, I remember we were next to like a grinder booth. Somebody selling grinders, and so I'm kind of like, I'm turned away, like, "Oh, okay, check it out." And then this guy drops into this Nick Shabazz impression that was honestly not bad, and I am just trying so hard not to die laughing. And Frankie and Bird keep looking over at me, and I'm just like, because he's doing it, and he's like, wow, and it's just amazing.
That's the exact story. That's the exact story that Frankie and Bird told me on the phone when I was talking to him here a few years ago when we did a joint giveaway thing on my channel and their channel. They were like, yeah. So here we are over here near the. I forget what we were like at the one of the at the booths, and this guy comes up, and we were like, "Have you seen Nick Shabazz? I'm pretty sure we saw him running around somewhere," and asked the guy to do the impression.
And trying to stay quiet through that and not like die laughing, and it was amazing.
If you remember in Vegas, I got kind of tipsy while we were eating dinner, and you were like, "I think you do a better Nick Shabazz than I did."
Yeah, you do. Hey, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
You got the guy with this thing with the pivot, and you don't know, and it's like it's like a mix between like a dude that runs a deli and Anthony Fauci. Like
I can see that with a little bit of the guy from Casino.
It's a little bit of a stutter in there.
Yeah, a little bit. That kind of thing, right? Yeah, I can see that.
I do Aaron Frederick so much better though.
Hey, come on, you can't just say that.
Oh no, I do. Aaron's like, what do you mean you talk better than me? The first time I met Aaron Frederick, we were at a show, and his wife had went to the bathroom, and I walked up and I started talking to Aaron, and that's when we in the first 15 minutes we found out that he and I had done the same job at the same unit at the same period of time, just on different coasts. We were both at like a special forces command and all that stuff, and we were part of MESF, and we did the non-compliant boardings and like just basically boarded ships and took over. And he's like, that's what I did. And we started and she comes back from the bathroom and she walks up, and Nico had went to go get a beer, and he and I are both leaned up against the wall, foot up on the wall. I'm wearing this hat, cowboy boots, and and she walks up and she hears me and Aaron talking, and she looks at me and she goes, fuck, there's two of you.
She ain't far off. I like Aaron a lot. I can see that.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, no, I can.
So we were talking about not being embarrassed. Like we were talking about being embarrassed. So the story that because I always do story time at the end. So when I was stationed in Japan, my last ship was in Tokyo area up near Yokosuka. And so I don't know if you've ever seen the images of the busiest intersection in the world. Like the crosswalks go like 6 different directions.
Oh, good God. That sounds unpleasant.
Like if you watch it, it's in, I can't remember where it's at in the Tokyo area, but anyway, we were up there, and it was a going away party for one of the kids that worked for me. And there was a bunch of people that got invited. And so there were people showing up late, and I come running down the sidewalk. Well, my wife was there. I come running down the sidewalk to the intersection. The light was green because I waited for the light to turn green, butt naked, like completely naked. It's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just butt naked through the busiest intersection in the world.
How did this come up?
Because somebody said I wouldn't do it. And so there's my wife.
I can see that.
There's my wife standing there holding my clothes, and there's all my junior guys. And this is the story I got from one of the guys that worked for me. They're like, man, was that your GM1? He just ran through the intersection naked? And they're like, yeah. It's like, wow, he must already be really drunk. They're like, he's driving. He hasn't had a drop. That's just him.
Yeah, I wish you all could see the lack of shock on my face right now. We'll just put it that way.
But the guys were like, oh my God. And they're like, yeah, he's a bit of a nut. And they were what's it like working for that guy? They're like, oh, it's fucking amazing. I came back. They're like, I just asked the guys, and I asked them, what's it like working for you? And I was like, oh, what'd they say? They're like, they said it's fucking amazing, and they can't imagine working for anyone else. And the fact that you're going to leave is upsetting them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
When I transferred, I actually transferred to go to the Spec War Command that I was at. So I had like 2 days. We were still packing out the house.
Yeah.
And we had a brand new chief, and he shows up at my house, and I was like, what's going on, chief? And he goes, I got to ask you. He's like, what did you do? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what did you do with these guys? Like, how did you do this? Like, I've got to know how you instilled this much loyalty. And I was like, I don't get it. And he's like, I walked
You
into the
rub
gun
naked through
mount.
Tokyo. What's the harm?
He's like, I walked into the gun mount and they kicked me out. And he's like, there were like 8 full-grown men in there crying like someone had just killed their puppy and told me I had to get out. And it's because you left. And I was like, I treated him like coworkers as opposed to subordinates. I was like, I always ask them to do something. Hey, can you do me a favor? I was like, if you, this is, so anybody that's listening that has a position where people work for you, if you tell someone to do something, if you make them respect you, they will do exactly what you tell them. If you earn someone's respect, they will move heaven and earth to make you happy.
What he said. That's a beautiful thing. Absolutely.
So, Nick, it's been 2 hours and 19 minutes, and it's going to be really hard for me to get this up on Apple Podcasts in a timely manner.
God help you, Mike.
I have had probably as much fun with this podcast as I did with Jim or Elliot.
Absolutely.
This has been one of the best ones. I appreciate you coming on. You are welcome
anytime,
to
Mike.
come on anytime. So
have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.
With that being said, I'm going to send you home, Nick, and I will tell everyone goodbye.
Bye now.
Guys, this was great. I had a blast. Thank you, everyone that donated to the channel. If you could please go and find the GoFundMe for Jeff over at Tough Thumbs. He really needs a lot of support. There's a good chance we're going to do an after show. If Tino wants to hop in, he can sit up on the love seat next to me and we'll both be in it. I'm going to end this. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please find the link to it. You'll enjoy it. Nick had a bunch of knives laid out. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time. There's going to be an after show, AJ. There definitely will be an after show. Guys, I got to end this or it's going to be too hard to get it up on podcasts.